Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the September 9th Abington Planning Board meeting, calling this meeting to order. Just a couple of things I'd like to mention before we start. David Johnson has retired as our town engineer after many, many years of service. And, I'm going to ask Liz and Kevin to write him a letter of appreciation for all the work, on behalf of the board. And also our great friend Dan Crane, who served as a town planner and advisor to the town after working for 32 years as the Old Colony Planning Council. He's one of the people who hired me to work there, but we could all forgive him for that. But I went to Dan's wake and funeral. He was buried with military honors over in Eastern. And Dan was my mentor, my professional mentor. But beside that, he was just a great servant to the town of Abington. And I'd like to have a moment of silence in Dan's behalf, please. Thank you, everyone. I'm just going to jump ahead to one thing. I discussed this with Liz. Update for town planner. I'd like to welcome Larry Silver to our meeting tonight. And I guess we need to make a motion to formally hire Larry as our consulting engineer. We all read his resume and his background, and he's eminently qualified. And David Johnson recommended Larry come, and Larry's come before the board before, not in a while, but we've had you before the board, so most of us are familiar with you. Would someone like to make a motion to formally hire Larry as our new town planner?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Welcome. All right, welcome, Larry. Congratulations. Welcome. Okay. I think it's 6:00.
Do you want to do the Form A on 207 Bedford Street?
Let's do the Form A, and then we'll do the other one. So we have Form A.
Hi, Sean Riley, 500 Bedford Street, representing Gosnell Home Builders, who submitted the Form A, 207 Bedford Street, which is actually the corner of Bedford Street and West Chapel Street. It's a property the planning board might be familiar with from a prior owner who had submitted several different renditions of different ideas, multiple family plans there that were cause for concern for the neighbors to say, well, I was not involved in that at all, but I do represent Mr. Gosselin, who has now purchased that property, and what he's proposing is to abandon the, whatever it was, 8 units, 6 units, 12 units, with different renditions of it, and he's proposed to just simply create 2 building lots and have a duplex on each lot. This is the transitional commercial zone. The lots themselves comply with the zoning bylaw, but we will be going to the zoning board solely because transitional commercial zoning district does not allow front yard parking. It kind of contemplates more of a commercial and mixed use. You would think of the residential use, especially a large family, nothing in the backyard, but in the front yard. Building inspector, and then the committee's aware of, front yard is from the foundation to the street. Side yard is basically the foundation to the side. So if you put the side on the West Chapel Street building, the driveways would be to the left and right of the building, so they'd be in the side yard. Now, obviously, they have to be in the front yard because that's where your access is, but the building commissioner said that if you keep it to the left and right, we'll consider that in the side yard, not necessarily a front yard. However, with the Bedford Street lot, it would be in the front yard, because we like to keep the backyard, it's kind of an extended backyard, to leave that alone, because that abuts up against our residential neighbors to the rear, and it allows us to maintain the existing curb cut on Route 18, which is a state highway. That doesn't have any relevance to you guys as far as the zoning goes, but I just want to let you know where we're going after this. But otherwise, the Form A complies in all regards, and we just ask your signature. I do understand that this was submitted to the town more than 21 days ago, and there was apparently a discussion about whether he was entitled to constructive approval, and Steve and I talked and said it's better that we go the quote-unquote regular route and have the board sign off, because then you just record the plan with the planning board signature. Otherwise, we would record the plan without the signature, but with a certificate from the town clerk saying it was automatically approved, and that just raises questions to future purchasers as to what happened, why was there a delay or an omission or whatever. We're just asking that it just be approved through the regular process. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer, but I think it's a pretty straightforward division into 2 lots, and would be, obviously, this approval would allow us to also abandon the multifamily proposal that was in the previous one.
Any board members have any questions? Mr. Riley?
No, I'm glad you let us know what, because don't want to let us know what he's going to feature and do in the future. But that's really it. Obviously, it is or it isn't. It is. In this statute.
Lot
Do we-
80 is delineated here.
Say that again?
What's lot 8?
This is Lot A right here. This is an existing building. So Lot A has the frontage on Buckley Street, here's
Yeah.
West Chapel. This
So
is
lot 8 is
correct. We have to kind of split the corner like that, because when once you turn the corner, then you need to have enough frontage on both streets,
Yep.
and it just creates a zoning thing. So the solution, the answer is to put it at the intersection.
Any other discussion?
A couple of things. Don't we as a board have some thoughts, preferences when it comes to, I mean, the old term is pork chop lots, but irregular borders as they start to split up lots? Is that something that's in the current bylaws? Thought I'd read it at some point, but,
It might be, that doesn't ring a bell.
I
I think so, as long as he's got the frontage to the.
well, that's the thing is, I mean, we're now seeing, basically S-curves to create the frontage in some of these, not this one particular, but in other ones.
Well, if he came back.
They're really working to create some of these split lots, so.
Well, what a good answer to that, we're not coming here for construction, so basically this could be a big empty lot. But he could literally slice this down 1,200 times and make 1,200 lots that are
Yeah.
1 foot long, and it still fits the regulations, you just can't build on it. So if this is an unbuildable lot because of the weird shape, then yeah, but with the pork chop lot, we haven't had a lot of those lately, but those are the ones we try to get away from.
Yeah, we've had a couple where it's, 20 feet this way, and then it opens up 100 yards deep into the property and
Yes, yeah.
builds up. And
Oh, I know where you're talking about, off on the street or
Strange,
off
but it's
of
just-
Central.
it's been a couple of them.
Yeah.
Could I offer something too, just to follow up on that? The Abington requires not only a lot frontage minimum, but also a lot width minimum, which is at the building front setback. That was added several years ago now, but in order to try to, not necessarily square off a lot, but make it a little bit more of a quote-unquote normal shape, at least at street. And then a building, no matter where it goes, has to then conform to side yards, front yards, and rear yards, which are buildings as well.
Anything else?
Back property line here, am I looking at this correctly, Sean?
Right.
Goes right through the shed?
Yeah, there's an encroachment with Mr. Libby's shed is right on the property line. We'll talk to him. I don't know if it's gonna be necessary that he removes it. It's just a small storage shed that he has. Our building, again, because we conform to setbacks, our building's gonna be over here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Mr. Gosselin has talked to Mr. Libby yet, but that probably showed on your previous plan, well, perhaps should have showed on your previous plan, I don't know if it did, but from the
Yep.
prior edition.
Yep.
So just because we haven't seen this before, and there's nothing on the map, just to make sure, minimum square feet is 10,000 square feet per lot?
I believe it is. I think it's,
11.6 and 14.5.
yeah.
Right, but minimum is 10,000. Minimum lot width is 100 feet?
Are you looking on the town website now?
Yeah.
As a buildable lot. Well, I
Yeah.
think you're getting there. So if this is the width, here, this says, this is the width, so obviously it's the depth.
Right.
But how
So-
far back does that have to reach that 100?
I don't know.
At the setback line.
Minimum
At the
continuous,
street and at the setback line.
so basically, as long as it's here, it can get narrow, it can be a triangle.
Right.
Yeah, this, It's not really any buildings proposed, it's just creating two lots.
No, it's a matter of whether we have to mark it like we've done some that it's approved, but it's not a buildable lot.
Right.
We put it down there, so.
And again, since I'm just seeing this, I need to make sure. The minimum yard depth, 40 feet, it's got that, 20 feet rear, 10 side. Right. Meets the minimums.
I'll make the motion, approval not required.
Second, please.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Can we put off signing all these until later on, Joe?
Actually, yes, because I have Rose Place in the other room, all set up for you guys to sign. So if you can just hand them back to me, we'll make a big pile. I already did. Yes, please. Is everybody at home getting all that crunchy paper?
My wife says when she watches this, all she wants is us.
Thank you.
Put them on the table.
You'll see the table on the left-hand side. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, 6:05. Okay. All right. 6:05, site plan, special permit, 199, 225 Central Street, Fire Station DPW complex. I'm going to read the public hearing notice. The Abington Planning Board will hold a public hearing at the Abington Town Offices, 500 Glenowitz Way, Abington, Mass., on Monday, September 9th, 2024, at 6:05 PM, on the application of the Town of Abington for a special permit to exceed maximum lot coverage under zoning bylaw 175-29 and site plan approval regarding the construction of a new fire department and public works complex. Property is owned by the Town of Abington, is located at 199, 225 Central Street, on Assessor's Maps 31, 32, lots 79, 79A, one in the residential R30 zone. Plans can be viewed at the town clerk's office at the Abington Town Hall, Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:15 p.m., Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 12:15 p.m. Signed, Bruce Hughes, Chairman, August 26th and September 2nd. So, who is representing, who's going to start?
I'm going to introduce. For the record, my name is Sean Riley. I am a resident of the town of Abington. I'm not here as town council. I don't represent the town. I am a volunteer on the building committee for the DPW Fire Station Building Committee project. I wanted to introduce to you some of the people who are here tonight regarding this project. This is the site plan and special permit hearing for the proposed new central fire station and new DPW facility on Central Street, which will be added and built around the existing police station for a nice public safety complex. So with us tonight is Brian McCusker and Elena Compter from Weston & Sampson's. They'll be leading the presentation in just a few moments and basically put together all the site plans and the details that support that. The architects for this project are Castle Blues Associates, which you may hear them refer to as KBA. Sean Schmiegel couldn't be here, but he's been actively, obviously, involved in kind of the lead in this project. Pomeroy Associates is our project manager, and I saw there's Taylor. Taylor McDonald is the town's owner's project manager. He'll be our eyes and ears throughout the project. He has been throughout the development. He will be during construction. The committee, the building committee is made up of 5 members, myself, Derek Hamadi is right here. Derek is a fireman in Abington, obviously a resident of Abington. He was on the previous committee that kind of ushered this. He's been working on this for 5 years. So he brings a lot of history to our committee. Mr. Gordon Slaney, who's here also, retired civil engineer. And the 4th and 5th members could be with us tonight. Alex Bezanson recently joined when Roger Woods resigned. He's now a selectman. And Mr. Bob Persicchini, who is and basically an HVAC, plumbing, code extraordinary, very helpful. He was involved with the development and the building of the public library. Fire Chief Jack Glynn is with us here tonight. Jack and his deputy Jared Driscoll have been very actively involved with all the building committee meetings, as has the DPW director John Stone and his number 2 guy Brian McLaughlin. John couldn't be here because of a family conflict. Town manager Scott Lambiase appointed our committee, and The selectmen and the town manager are in their own meeting right now, so that's why they're not here in attendance. And I do note that our abutter to our east, Mr. Henry DiCarlo, is here on Central Street. Quick background, and I think it's in the submission for those people at home though. These plans were submitted to the Conservation Commission in Abington, and they issued what they call a negative determination. There is obviously the pond across the street. There is a small wetland ditch over near Mr. DiCarlo's house that actually then goes underground in a pipe through our property. And then on the western side, on the opposite side of the LaPointe property, there's a river over there. And there's about 3 to 5 feet of the 200-foot riverfront protection that goes along our western boundary. So we are not filling wetlands, we're not hurting wetlands or doing anything, and the Conservation Commission issued a negative determination that no order conditions was required. There's no zoning relief required for this project, and I believe you were given a copy of the building commissioner's letter confirming that since it's already a municipal use, we don't need to get a special permit for municipal use, and since there's already more than one principal building on the lot, we don't need to get a variance for that also. The site plan has been submitted to you along with the request for the special permit. So what we're looking for tonight is approval of the special permit to exceed the lot coverage limits under 175-29, for also site plan approval under 175-77, and as part of that site plan approval, we're asking that you be approving our buffers, our fences, as we've designed and laid out in the plans, and we'll show the details a bit more as we get going, and also the approval of a 9-foot wide parking spaces on this plan, which the most recent bylaw updates allow you to do with just a vote of the majority, which you'll do if you approve the site plan. So that's what we're looking for, the special permit, the site plan review with those two elements included in it. And with that, I'd like to turn over to Brian McCusker, who will make a presentation for the committee, for the board.
Good evening. All right, just have a quick slideshow. This is a pretty big project, so just kind of want to walk people through it. I know it's been in town for a while. So just want to remind everyone, it's 199, 215, and 225 Central Street at the existing DPW police station location. And then just to bring everyone up to speed, you know, this project has been in the works since 2018, especially with the fire department. There's been multiple alternative analysis on different sites in order to finally find out that this DPW existing police station site is where we kind of need to be. What is proposed? We have buildings, we have fire department headquarters, Department of Public Works, a salt shed, and then for the site development, we have stormwater and a fuel island with above ground tanks. And then let's just go to the proposed buildings. So I know everyone knows how to read blueprints, but I think this is a little bit easier. So as you can see, here's the existing police station. Here's the existing vehicle maintenance and police building. Here's the proposed fire department, proposed DPW, proposed salt shed, proposed fuel island. Now, I think a lot of the comments from SEA, and it's true, you know, there's a lot of street openings, there's a lot of parking, there's a lot of things going on the site. So we do need to clarify some of the site signage and entrances. So, you know, we just want to make it clear that this is only visitor parking and public parking here. In that, for best traffic flow, we turn the vehicles left a lot, especially for these large vehicles and apparatus for the fire department, the school buses, the DPW equipment. So in the next slide, that might make more sense, but, oh, and then just to clarify, we are doing this project in a phased approach to help with cost and temp facilities. So right now, the fuel island exists right here, so they can be building the new fuel island while this one's ongoing, which fuels the whole town, as well as the salt shed as well. The existing salt shed's over here, and so they can build this while they're using that one. So that kind of plays into a lot of things, but, and then here's some site signage we plan on having, so. Oh, sorry. Oh, Jesus. Do you have the mouse thing? Can I just back up?
There's a stylus around behind the screen.
Yeah, it's gone rogue.
I wish all the presentations were like this. Seriously.
Some real pen.
Okay.
Alright, so here's kind of an idea of how the trucks would typically rotate around the building. If you turn left, it's easier for the driver to see left than to taking a right. So, you know, they can come through here, fuel up, salt, go back out. You know, if they need to, you know, the vehicle storage is right here as well. The fire department will use the front apparatus bay to turn around in as well anyway. So as you can see, this is kind of the main entrance, and we'll make sure that's clear. But the rest of the site will be kind of private employees, only municipal town workers. Here's just another site from that view, so just a bird's eye. I think this helps more than the plan sometimes. And then here's an existing salt shed, very similar to what we're doing here. Cast and plate walls that abuts and retains, so size for the town's needs, weather tight, and then can utilize this dual function space during the summer months where they're not storing salt. Currently, the DPW salt shed is falling apart, not sized adequately. And then proposed site development. So, just want to specify there's no rare endangered species on the site, and the building is not located within the FEMA floodplain. Sorry, I'm trying to figure this out here. And then the existing site plan, I think this comes into play a lot. So the area in red is currently disturbed area with no stormwater treatment or minimal stormwater treatment in that area right now. Currently it's half paved, half dirt, half crushed stone. The red is the property limit currently occupied by the DPW and police station. The blue is the additional property that was included as part of our proposed project as well. And then the green buildings are existing to remain, and the red buildings will be demolished. So, as you can see here, like it's nice being able to do that phase one work, because these buildings will be able to remain in operation while they're doing that. Because right now, temporary facilities and relocating departments off-site is a cost. So, as you can see right here, the gray shaded area is pavement, the blue is the proposed buildings, the green are those existing buildings again. You know, we're kind of working around the police station and trying not to minimize their operations. We have met with them. They are happy with everything. And then regarding the buffers, and this goes into that, you know, approval, where Sean and building committee met with the cemetery department, and they went over the 6-foot-tall solid wooden fence that they're gonna replace on the side. Right now, it's currently fallen over. I don't know if anyone knows, but this is a cemetery drive, so trying to make sure that they're buffered. The grade rises in the back, so we're not putting any fences there. There's current trees. And then the grade also rises here. So what's nice is, you know, we've had complaints from neighbors who are like, oh, you know, the salt shed's really, really large. Luckily here, we're kind of building it into the hill, so that way it minimizes a lot of, you know, residential visuals here. And then we're gonna also put back next, so Mr. DiCarlo doesn't see anything, 5-foot-tall black chain link fence with privacy slats. So, you know, I think at the end, maybe he can, you know, speak on anything if he's interested. He's been very helpful, he's been at all the town meetings. And then here's the stormwater. As you all know, it's across the street from a pond. High groundwater here is very difficult for the stormwater. So, you know, we try our best to do above grade stormwater systems, but sometimes you just have to go below grade with detention systems. So as you can see in red, these are all below grade, you will not see these. And then we have one in the front that's a bioretention swale.
And I'll jump in here and give a little bit more of an overview. I'm a civil engineer on the project. So our approach to stormwater design here was, it's a combination of redevelopment and new development. Obviously the part on west where the existing DPW facility is, that's redevelopment, that's mostly impervious right now, with some gravel areas, compacted gravel areas in the back that the DPW uses for storage of materials. And then the new development is the additional parcel that the town purchased, which is going to be occupied by the salt shed and the fuel island in a proposed condition. So because the new development will be meeting all of the Massachusetts stormwater regulations fully for peak reduction, recharge to the groundwater, and TSS removal, which is required up to 80% TSS removal. Now the existing portion that's redevelopment Unfortunately, there are a lot of constraints, as Brian mentioned, one of them being very high groundwater. So we will do the best that we can, but it's gonna really meet some of those requirements to the maximum extent practicable.
And then, yeah,
So this is some of the structures that we propose as part of the treatment train to provide that TSS removal. On the existing facility side, where we're proposing treatment to the maximum extent practicable, we're gonna have deep sump hooded catch basins, which connect to the proprietary stormwater treatment hydrodynamic separators, and that provides pre-treatment. Then that runoff is gonna be directed to the mostly underground detention systems. We generally love to use infiltration, but because of the groundwater on the site, we don't, in a lot of the areas, in the southern portion of the site, we don't have the minimum separation from groundwater to those chambers. The only exception is, and if I'm gonna go back here, this one area is going to be an infiltration, and that's gonna receive a lot of the runoff from the new portion of the development, salt shed mainly. And that is about approximately 10 feet higher than the elevation at the street. So because of that difference in elevation, it allows us to have separation from the groundwater that's required. And also in the front of the site, we're going to have a bioretention area that's just going to get mostly runoff from the driveway.
sound good? And just another few things that usually come up is fuel islands. Obviously, the existing fuel island is 30 years old, underground tanks, not sized big enough for the town's fleet, which the school buses also use this as well. So that was kind of brought into this project. The soil and groundwater was tested and no exceedance of Mass DEP reportable conditions were found. So that's always good, not saying that anything may not be found during that, but you know, we tried to find it. That's the goal, that way we know. And then, you know, here's a proposed fuel island, so best practice above ground tanks, and then size appropriately for the fleet, so it's kind of an example fuel island that we have. And then, one thing I think another Mr. Carlo comment is currently the police station shines into his house, so we will probably deal with that as well, but right now, you know, we try to make sure that nothing from this project would go off the property line. Everything's dark sky compliant, full cutoff, and we try to make sure that that works. So I know that's a big concern a lot of times with the butters. And then just with the building features, you know, some of the things that we're doing in this project, trying to make sure that people, occupants and employees are safe. We have energy efficient buildings, you know, resilient design. These are departments that can't go down when the rest of the town goes down. Efficiency gained through the consolidation of departments. We've done these types of projects over the years where we've combined multiple departments and it seems to work really well for the town. More secure facility. The police are there, they notice things at night when maybe someone's in the DPW yard that shouldn't be. Full sprinkle coverage, right now a lot of these buildings aren't sprinkled. Adequate ventilation and adequate lighting for the employees in vehicles that are stored inside. And then improve parking lot and site features, because right now, as you saw earlier, that site. And then we're addressing SEA comments. We're probably about 75% done, and then just after tonight's feedback, you know, we'll revise anything if needed and resubmit soon on that. So, you know, we've been looking at those since we got them last week. And then just like Sean was saying, you know, here are the requested approvals. It's really to special permit to exceed maximum lot coverage, and then to allow the 9-foot wide parking spaces, and then the approval of the fence and buffers that we've been trying to work with the abutters on. And as Sean said, here's the project team. We have Pomeroy kind of overseeing, which is Taylor, overseeing Kessel Booth. They're the architect of record for the fire department, interior designers, and then I work for Weston and Sampson. We're the architect for the DPW, salt shed, fuel island, and then the civil engineering team as well. So I'm sure there'll be questions.
Larry, I'd like to ask you if you could just do a brief, we've read the letter that you sent us. Thank you.
Yeah.
Could you just give us a brief summary of your comments, please?
Well, my letter, I tried to follow the criteria that you guys have set forth for reviewing these kind of site plans. So I tried to go through those one by one. One of the things that kind of struck me was that, we talk about these being individual lots, like there was a new piece that was added to it, but there isn't, these parcels have not been combined. And we talk about zoning compliance and having more than one building on a lot, but yet we don't have a single lot right now. So I think it's really important that all the pieces that make up this site be made into a single lot. So there needs to be an 81X or whatever to combine the parcels. And then that'll set the stage for also being able to show that that you have the setbacks and everything to the property lines and everything. That'll all come into play. That'll be certified by an RLS, and I think that'll sort of make it the one lot scenario that you're trying. And having said that, it feels as though, in reviewing it, and I made in some of those comments that I made, was that the police station is sort of like, well, it's already a finished police station, it's not part of the lot, but yet it's part of the lot. And this really is a complex that has all three. Now, I suggest that the title of this project is really all three, however you want to name that. But the police station is part of it. It connects in all different ways. And so I made some comments as they were related to those kind of things to make sure to kind of clean up. It's mostly in that existing conditions plan and so forth, which seemed to me to be a lot of overlay of a lot of stuff in there, very difficult to read some of the things that were in there. There was maybe almost too much information to be on that one single sheet as opposed to what what was intended. There was a lot of good information, but when it was referenced and you found like the logs in some of the reports, in there were no surface elevations maybe in them or corresponding high groundwater elevations. So there was just some of those things that, and I went point by point through each one item and pointed out what I felt was something that needed to be addressed. I'm hoping it's a good enough roadmap for you folks, and my door is open for a discussion with anything or any questions that you have in order to not have any issues that are still on the table. There was and one of the things was like in your summary table there, the site is really the 9.38, it's not 7.71, and when you start saying you only got lot coverage of a certain point, and then you say we added the other 1.67, there was a little bit of smoke and mirrors there in terms of your lot coverage, okay, as to how much you're really covering. And I made some suggestions that I think that you might want to look to see where you might be able to take some of that lot coverage numbers down a little bit, because you're really going up considerably from what it currently is to what you're proposing. And so you want to still accomplish the program, but I think there are some areas where you might be able to, to make things work. And one of the things that I talked about was like the vehicle and the pedestrian kind of circulation and who's going where and who has rights to go everywhere, and how is it going to work? Because there's a lot going on here. There's 3 different departments that are operating here. One of the things I just heard tonight, which I hadn't heard of before, was that the school buses are going to come in and fuel in there. So when the school buses come in and fuel in there, where do they exit? Is everybody going around the other side of the fire station to get back out to the street? So, and a returning fire truck does the same thing? He goes around and comes in the back doors of the fire station?
No, so the fire trucks, their primary response out the front door, so they would use that turn-in apron to go into the front doors, and they usually park their secondary response in the back of the doors.
So these are not through doors to go right back into the bay, huh?
They are through doors, but usually they have additional equipment on the backside, like another ambulance or like maybe a boat or
yeah, correct. Or they're set up to go out the back, to respond out the back, respond out the front.
So it's like double pronged.
So there are 5 bays with 10 vehicles.
Yeah. So that side entrance on the left side, that's a very busy place. If we're saying that everybody's using that as their way of getting back out to the road, it's kind of something to consider as to how that all works. And that gets back to one of the comments I made is, well, you got three major departments that are gonna be functioning here. It's kind of like a condominium project, where when you're gonna have a condominium project, you have sort of common areas that everybody has, and you have exclusive use areas. And I think some of that stuff really needs to be ironed out now, because the players are gonna change in the future. The chief's not gonna be there, in the future someone else is gonna be there. You don't want him to be at odds with who's the DPW guy and the police chief saying, well, wait a minute, that's the area that we use, or we've decided that we're gonna circulate a different way. Okay, so it's really important to have it clear in the narrative and in a plan as to how circulation happens here, whose areas are exclusive areas for use, and whose areas are, what areas are common areas. And it sounds like that driveway is one of the major common areas in terms of exiting vehicles, you know? So there's a lot of my comments in going through were sort of geared to how does this thing all hang together? You know, how does it really work when all is said and done? And so I tried to lay out comments to that effect and to make sure that we're looking at these things with our eyes open and making sure that in the end it functions well. The comments I heard tonight about how the drainage works and to have this infiltration basin in the back where we know that groundwater flow is going towards the front. And we got a shallow groundwater flow in the area where the fire station's going. How does that impact it? There's no mounding analysis that's been presented as to how that might affect. And I think that's very important. I think that we need to make sure that we understand whether or not there is a component of mounding that's going to affect the groundwater conditions, because right now, I indicated that you might want to consider this elevation that you're setting the fire station at, I think is too low. Because I'm thinking that, you got a very shallow groundwater condition there. I didn't see architectural plans, so I don't know whether or not there's anything below slab grade that's part of this, so it's just strictly a slab.
Correct.
So that, great. But I think that if you look at that slab elevation, I personally think you'd be doing yourself a good thing to be able to go up 1 foot with that slab elevation and make that work, because you're having trouble with the drainage in the back, making that work. You got a large contributing area there, very minimal slopes for some of those pipes that are coming out, and especially the catch basin that's right behind the fire station. That's got a huge catchment area, and it's got a flat pipe, and it's just something that would benefit by having just a slightly higher slab elevation on the fire station. So these are some of the things that I tried to address in some of the comments. I did want to also point out that it wasn't clear to me on this pipe that comes through the site. Everybody's relying on that pipe, the one that comes across and then heads over to the pond. What other contributions are to that pipe that are going to be impacted by all this added flow that's going in there? And also, the floodplain elevation, FEMA's elevation, I believe, is 88. And when that pond is at 88, none of that water that's on the site is going to find its way out. Because it's not going to find its way out because your site, your surface grades are up in the low 90s, then it's not going to be able to flow towards the pond in the way that you might want it to. So you really got to kind of look at, in those scenarios, what does that FEMA floodplain elevation mean to the project and to how it functions? One of the things I had pointed out that the grades, the datum wasn't clear. I was assuming that datum is on the right, NAVD 88, whatever, that it was actually the same datum as the FEMA, but it wasn't clear on the plans. So I went through each item. I've given them an answer or something to think about on each one of those, whether or not it seemed like everything was met or it wasn't. And I think that they've obviously read it. they said you're partially through that now. And I think that if they can address these items that I'm showing, I think that we'll be a lot closer to getting to the point where the board should feel comfortable with it. But I do really think that this management of how this complex works, including the police station in it, in terms of overall, making it one lot, and making it so that everybody understands in the future is a major part of what you do when you sign off. So I know it's a site plan, but it's a little bit more than just a site plan in terms of just how things lay out. It's really how it works. And turning radiuses, there was no information provided. That was one of the comments, that I didn't see turning radiuses for the trucks and so forth, to see how they are all gonna negotiate these access ways. And as you had mentioned earlier about the signage and so forth, that's one of the things that you guys are gonna kind of address there. It's a lot of wide open area in front of that fire station, much the same as it's wide open now in front of the DPW building that's there, but it's a little bit different. They don't have the kind of, all of a sudden, emergency vehicles coming out, on short notice. And how is that all gonna be managed so that nobody has a problem? There's no indication of how there's going to be any lighting, any lights at the, outside the station, to stop traffic, to make things so that it's manageable in terms of being able to get out and to get to where you need to get to in a hurry. So those are kind of things that I really do think that you really kind of have to look at a little closer. And the one thing that, and I think one of the overriding things that I was concerned of is that there's demolition going on here of buildings in which there's been no talk about what is the depth of the existing buildings, how are those areas that are excavated out, how are they being brought up so that they're going to be properly prepared for the new fire station, especially with that DPW building that's coming out of there. And whether or not that's, is there any part of that DPW building that goes below grade further, more than a slab on grade, that, might be problematic in terms of getting it to the point where it functions as a good base for the fire station. But I think if you go through the comments, I think that, we'll be well on our way to trying to get you through this and getting you approved. But that's kind of where we did, and like I said, I followed the format of what your criteria is and tried to do it each one. And then I added a few that weren't really part of it when I saw that there was still some other comments to actually deal with.
Well, it's good to hear, it's good for me to hear that, Weston Sampson, you said you're about 75% going through Larry's comments. That's a good start. And Larry was able to amplify some more concerns, particularly about the school buses too. I mean, I read all this stuff all day Saturday, reading all this, and I didn't know the school buses. Are these the town-owned school buses, or are these all the school buses that provide school service?
It's the town's fleet, I'm not 100% sure.
They're not stored on site, it's run through a
There's only one.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I didn't think it was First Students buses they were.
Right.
Yeah.
The no school buses really go into the lot at all.
Yeah, and I think that we own it.
We don't own any actual school.
The town used to own one school bus, so that was, what if we own it again, this is how we would handle.
Okay.
It's designed for the largest trucks, because between the fire department and DPW, those are the largest trucks that we own. So, do you mind if I put the site plan back up here? Yeah, do you have that?
Yeah, I have a PDF, but yeah, we just turn the layers on, we don't.
Yeah.
Sean?
Thanks.
Which one do you wanna go to? Maybe that one?
Yeah, I just want to, Larry, Mr. Silva's letter was great, very thorough, and I did have a conference call with the engineers today, and they have 75% of the answers. We're putting it all in writing for you. And I just wanted to reassure the board and the viewers at home, a lot of the items you brought up, we have discussed at length, and yes, we didn't put it into a narrative, but we can certainly do so. So let's talk briefly about circulation. One of the things we were trying to do was maximize safety for not only residents who are guests here at the property, but also for our employees. So, case in point, if you picture right now, This is the existing police station, and this is the existing police station parking lot. And when the police get a call right now, they come out of there, this is their police station employee parking lot. They come out and they come right through the edge of that parking lot. You know, the basketball courts are there, right? Okay.
So you're saying, yeah, right.
So they would come right through here and kind of basically go through the parking lot, the same entrance that the residents come in, the public driving entrance.
Can I add one thing to that? Sean, I'm sorry. Talking about police, 80% of the time though, they will be responding from the road, not the station. So it's not going to be frequently used by the police because they'll be responding from their cars.
I think it's just a little easier to see it here, but.
They're not racing out of the police station.
Yeah. Most of the time they're coming from the road somewhere else.
What did we get to, where was that one we had? The actual plan. Oh, that's right here. So now, with the addition of this new driveway, and as we've talked about before, the two things that have to be working 24 hours a day, 365 days a year is the fuel pump and the salt shed during the winter. So we went through a long discussion about when and how can we raise the existing DPW buildings, and what are we gonna do with the DPW when they have no buildings? So just so you know, and you may have already heard, the thought is to bring the materials up to North School. And that's where they would basically store things during this 1 year to 1.5 year project for construction. The salt shed, though, we didn't want to build another salt shed somewhere off-site for a year and then dismantle it and build another salt shed back here. So the committee and our project manager came up with this phase one, where we're going to develop this driveway, that salt shed, and that fuel island, and then at the same time, we just had to remove that fuel island. Once that is done, then we can start demolition of the DPW buildings. So when we put this driveway, and we also planned to connect it to the existing police station parking lot. So now when the police, if they are parked at the building and get a call, instead of now coming through the public parking lot, which is now gonna be expanded, now they have a dedicated travel lane where the police can go out, police can come in if they'd like to. They have the option, if God forbid there's something going on blocking that road, they have another way to get in. We want to have a little flexibility. But this would be an emergency access for police if need be. The fire department, as we mentioned, it's obvious up in the street, much like Route 18, much like the Rockland Street. And for the most part, returning trucks would come in, it's 60 feet off the road here, so they have some maneuverability to back in, because in most cases, the frontline vehicles are up front, sorry, I keep touching it, don't I? Would exit the front of the building, and there's still gonna be a second layer of vehicles in the rear part of each bay. So the bays aren't empty, so they can't just drive through, unless this is all out, everybody empties out. That likely won't happen. But for the fire department, with the fire departments come back and they need to refuel, yes, they come right up here, refuel, and they can come around and they can get back to their building, whether they're coming in the front or the back bays.
Is that right driveway two-way or one-way?
Two-way,
All right, so there's enough space for two vehicles to pass?
is wide enough.
Okay.
Everything's a little bit more generous here. We do
But
have-
that's not the circulation you intend on. The police are gonna use that in and out all the time?
This is, honestly, we met with the police chief and talked about this, but that was 2 police chiefs ago.
Right,
About
I
6
get it.
months ago.
Well, it's
The new
only
police
one
chief
fire
literally
We could
just
go
got
grab-
sworn in about 15 minutes ago. But this is our suggestion, because now they have no conflict with any public parking up front by using that. I can't tell them, don't go that way, but that's gonna be the easier, safer way for them. Similarly, the DPW, usually DPW, they leave in the morning and they're out of the project for most of the day. And so yes, most of their, since their vehicles are stored here, they will be exiting this way here. Fire department averages, well, I don't know how many calls a day, but 8 to 10 calls a day, more. But they will, they're right there up front, so they're not gonna be driving around out back all day. It's just not gonna be.
And it's really just the tower apparatus that'll be pulling through. Everything else we back.
Yes, I'm sorry, you're right. The tower has its own dedicated bay, so that can enter from the rear to get back into the garage. So we have worked on trying to coordinate this traffic flow, looking at what happens during the winter, looking at the non-winter months, looking at during, this is our basically emergency operations center. So we've gone through making sure now every building will be powered by a generator. The vehicle maintenance building wasn't, it will be. The DPW will have a generator, the fire department will have a generator, the police department has a generator, and we're connecting the fuel pump to that generator. So this will be a kind of a standalone emergency complex. Within the limits, do we wish we had more room? Yes. We're trying to use the site as efficiently as possible. When you have a DPW that's now basically losing part of their storage area because we're putting the fire station on there. And there are areas that we've intentionally, the comment about the extra pavement, we did that intentionally, and we'd like to preserve that pavement for two reasons. One is for the maneuverability of our vehicles, for our trucks. Also for training areas out back behind the fire department, they might use it for training, but also we just don't know where we're storing things and what we're storing. There is a proposal to build a storage canopy on the western boundary line, right over in this area, if money allows. We have reserved room up here for a future storage building, not in our budget, not in our project, but we've tried to design what could, if we needed or had the money to add in 10 years, 20, let's reserve room for that. So we're trying to build this for now, but also build it for the future. You just put up the turning radius, which was not part of your submission, but we will submit this to you.
Yeah, we have a lot more information, it's just a matter of, we don't want to overload. And then we have quite a thorough drawing, so we have 2 volumes right now going through this project that are up to cost. And then, one thing to note, in between this and, potentially the next meeting, I'd say a few things. The DPW, we do a lot of their projects, they're kind of the junkyard of the town. They collect a lot of things that the town scraps there, so the more room, the better. I think last time I was there, they have a bunch of cars out back, they had a playground from somewhere. So they, just a lot of random things are stored there, that's why we tried to just put lay down spaces. And then, yeah, I would say take a ride out there too, if you haven't been out there. I'm sure it's always helpful to see it. So.
It's not a complete combination of all the facilities. I understand that the DPW, they're still gonna have to have office space on Summer Street, is that correct?
That's correct. Again, if we had all the space and all the money in the world, we'd build bigger buildings for both departments, but we don't. So I have to commend the fire department and the DPW for telling us what they absolutely need and telling us also what they don't need. One of the earlier plans had a wash bay added to the vehicle maintenance facility, which would have been great for our town, so that fire trucks, DPW, or any town vehicle could get in there and wash salt off, or after some sort of fire, could wash the trucks. Just can't afford to do that, so it's been eliminated from the plan. But we've tried to work and maximize as much of the property as possible, but yet have flexibility. The storage that we have right now, if you go up there, they have old Connex boxes that are in shambles. So part of our project in trying to kind of think long-term and short-term is when we move everything, the things that are being stored to the North School, the proposal is to buy 5 or 6 new Connex boxes. So they're brand new, they're nice, they're neat, and store as much in those boxes as possible and park vehicles up there. So there's not debris all over the North School area. And then when we are ready to move to this site, those same Connex boxes are being put out back here in the back. So there's, again, organized storage area, more efficient storage area. There are times of the year when the fire department needs to have their fireboat on site. And that's where this area, we're trying to keep this as kind of a flex area, where you may see the fire department's boat there, you may see some highway department, depending on what's going on in the town. If there is a calamity, and we call every single fireman and every police officer and every DPW guy in here and woman, if these parking spaces aren't enough, we have room for parking. So again, we're trying to be flexible, and that's where a paved area is easier to plow, it's easier to utilize in different ways, and we can control the runoff. Exactly how they control the runoff is above my pay grade. These guys can talk to you about that stuff, about the bounding analysis and all that. But there has been a lot of coordination trying to be put into it, and we're happy to try to educate the public and educate the board. I apologize that we didn't put it in writing more, but we can certainly do that, and that's frankly part of this public hearing process to explain it. And again, I want to thank Mr. DiCarlo, who lives right here. And I met with the the members of the cemetery board just the other night to go over existing fences and proposed fences to make sure that they get something that they would like, something that looks nice, and they have specifically asked, Mr. DiCarlo has asked, the existing fence that's on the police station is gonna be moved over here, so it's between his property and the driveway. There's a lot of green space there. We're gonna save the trees that are there. And Henry and I have talked, the fence isn't gonna be brought all the way up to the street, because then it just blocks his view of the pond. It's gonna start back, I think we were talking 60 feet or so. Much like this fence over here, there's an existing wooden fence that kind of goes on the town property, then goes over on the cemetery property and back on the town property. And there's a great row of evergreens that goes down. All of the evergreens are on the cemetery side, so those will be preserved. But we do need to replace the fence. And the fence currently terminates at about 120 feet back here. And it was agreed that we would terminate the fence at the corner of the fire department building, so it'd be about 60 feet back. So we are working with neighbors, the police department, the fire department, the DPW, the water department, to a limited extent the sewer department, and Conservation Commission. It's been a project, but I think we are well on our way. Our project manager has been kind of guiding us through this, and we've got a good team together. We welcome your questions, because we want the questions, because it's a lot easier to change things and improve things on ink and on paper. But I wanted to explain to you that there has been a lot of discussion about some of the items that you brought up, so I don't want you to think we just kind of glossed over or anything like that.
Has his house, there's one thing about living next to a fire station. You're usually the one that burns. And I've lived next to a fire station and the house next to it burned.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel your confidence.
Well, that's what I'm just thinking, like,
Eric knows I have two younger brothers that were both retired firefighters, so.
I do.
We know the routine.
Mr. Chairman, I just want, the one comment I did want to say, one of the things that you also, I'd ask is that you really detail how you plan on doing snow storage. Because you got an awful lot of area there to control and manage. And now you're keeping all these lanes that are all leading to the left side of the fire station. And I guess you like to have that wide open pavement. I want to see how that pavement is preserved to make sure that traffic is not impeded and somebody's not parking where they shouldn't.
Yep.
And so forth. And finally, the other item is, there's a lot of utilities that are being adjusted on this site, and it concerns me about whether or not it's really detailed as to show how it's gonna work. Because I know that I saw I made some comments about even the service connections to the police station aren't shown on the plan, and there's a lot of interruption of some utilities and rerouting of utilities. It's just to make sure that everybody still has control of their own utility connections and shut-offs and everything else, so that you don't have to go to the fire station to shut off the police station flow of water or anything.
All right, we've heard from the proponents, and we've heard from our engineer, and I know, I'm just gonna open this up to members of the board. I know you guys have asked some questions in the course of this discussion. I mean, I have a few questions, but does anyone else want to ask some questions?
I have just, not of my own, because I guess I'll wait for everybody else to talk, but we're pretty detail oriented, and that's more important than everything you showed me so far. And that's the one thing you didn't include. We spend more of our time with water because it has no place to go. The other part of it is traffic and trying to get visualization, how many people are coming in and that, because that's what the neighbors care about. So if you have, and the details that he talked about, not seeing the utilities, and those are things I know those are things that pick up in my eye, but I know that's going to pick up in his eye. That's why we're trying to look forward for those things. And I'll answer my questions afterwards.
I'll go first. I have a bunch, and first, Mr. Silva, I just want to thank you for this. This is really well thought out, really spent a lot of time thinking about the project in its totality. If this is the type of work we're going to get going forward, we're going to be, I think, very happy with you as our consultant. So
It's a great letter, Larry. Thank you.
I think he brings up a number of great things, and I have a couple other questions as well. just to preface it, I mean, I don't think there's anybody at this table who's, objects to this project or doesn't want to see it. But there are a couple of things that kind of keep me awake at night thinking about this a little bit. Not really awake, but it's the idea that, 8-9 years from now, that we run into an issue because of where it's located that requires a larger environmental remediation fix because we didn't do it right the first time. And if we don't do it right the first time, it results in, it affects a river, it affects a pond, and the fix for that is just super expensive. So I think our concern is, let's make sure we're doing it right the first time, because the price tag for fixing it is going to be just insane. That's my biggest concern. My second concern is a little bit less, but I think as he kind of alluded to is, does this functionally work well? Especially since we have a lot of kind of corners and turns. I mean, what happens if one of the giant dump trucks gets stuck at one of those turns up there and blocks access to everything? Do we have workarounds? Do we have thought process? Does everyone know where they have to go? Just making sure that it flows right and works right. Because 8 years from now, I don't want to hear the site just isn't working. We're going to have to figure out something else for this whole function.
Can I add to you? I think a good example of what you're talking about is the gas station they did in front of Stop and Shop in Abington. Those extra lanes were decided on that because when they were refueling, it was going to block a lane, so they added a special. It was all built around what if, and it's worked out great up there. I mean, we won't have to come back and do anything.
Yeah.
Sorry.
If I may, Rick, Mr. Chairman, we completely agree with you. And that's why, this turning radius shows that the largest trucks can get around here, but it also shows they can get through here if they wanted to.
Yeah.
I don't know that they'll ever use that because it depends on what's going on in the front parking lot, right?
Yeah.
But we wanted to design it that they can if they had to.
Okay.
And same thing out here. This is already existing. This is already existing over here. This vehicle maintenance building, an existing building where all town vehicles are repaired, has bypass doors that go through. So, there are alternate ways to go if there's either a training issue going on or some blockage of whether a tree falls down. We needed to have more than one, if in some cases 3, different ways to get in or out because, we've been thinking worst case scenario. If there's an emergency going on affecting the town, it's probably affecting this site too, right? There may be trees down. We don't know. That's why we needed to be self-sustained and have multiple ways in or out. If we could predict the future, we could design it perfectly, but we're trying to be as wide open and wide-eyed as we can. We're open to suggestions, but I think it is something we've had a lot of discussions from the fire department's view, the DPW view, the engineering view, and the police station view.
So your consultant said that there's no exceedant of reportable conditions regarding the existing fueling station.
That we could not find.
Yeah. So, which I'm glad to hear. At what point, when you start getting into it, do you have to then remediate? I mean, I assume that's the same thing, where if you start digging in, there might be a little bit of oil and gas or something down there, but
Yeah.
it's not considered, remediable or something.
I'm not an LSP. Usually know when you do underground storage tanks, there'll be people on site they have what they call a sniffer.
Yeah.
And, they'll do that, they'll test the water, they'll test some of the soil. And then when you take fill off the site, there's a certain amount of quantities of fill that need to be tested. And then if it's above the threshold, it has to be brought to a certain landfill. And
Yeah.
sometimes those landfills are far, but I don't think there's any in Massachusetts right now that would take it above the threshold,
Okay.
the reportable condition. So, we'll have to deal with that when we get there, that's part of the
Yeah.
project. Same thing that he was mentioning for the existing building. We tested them to the biggest extent we can, there's asbestos in them, and there's other things in them, but, you never know, we can't see through concrete sometimes.
Yeah, so that was my next question is I can't imagine after 80 years of use that there's not going to be something in the ground underneath some of those pads. So, but that's part of the project is for remediation and cleaning it up and all that stuff. Okay.
We have contingencies built into the budget that we just hope we don't have to spend, but we have to go one step at a time.
Okay. I think Mr. Silva mentioned it, but just total site parking needs. Have there been calculations done on when you're combining all these additional uses? What's the minimum just to staff the site? And then, you know, how many other spaces do we need for vehicle storage? How many other for guest availability? Are those available somewhere?
That's something.
That's been incorporated in the next resubmission that we're going to provide, addressing the comments from the engineer.
Okay, so what we're looking at now, does that provide enough, or does it have to be reconfigured somehow?
It does not, yeah, I think
I'm
what's,
not sure.
the net effect is we're gonna have 31 public parking spaces in that public parking lot. There are, I believe it's 7 parking spaces right here off the street, and this would be where the chief parks and some of the administrative staff, and 2 or 3 people park there. We're leaving a couple extra spaces there because there is an EMS triage room right next to the radio room, so if someone came in, my child fell, I need help, this is where they'd go, right there, and they'd get immediate help in the new triage room that would be put in there. Out to the rear of each building is where the employee parking is. So there's employee parking, in the back you can see there's, what's that, 17 parking spaces? Or is that, no, 14 parking spaces, I'm reading it upside down. 14 parking spaces for the fire department, you have shifts of 6. DPW parking is out here, there's 24 out there. We're trying to anticipate summer help and all. And the police station already has their existing parking. So, again, there is no real public office out back here either, so we're looking at employee parking. So
when you say public, 31 public spaces, what do you mean?
the police station's parking lot right now, we're adding more spaces over here in the fire department, so it doesn't show it here, but you know where, when you drive into the police station's front parking lot, that entrance is still the same. We're just adding more parking to the left where the basketball courts are.
All right. Because I guess my one thought is, you know, aside from street hockey, I've never seen more than 8 cars in that police lot.
Right.
You know, unless they're having a large community meeting.
There is a training room, community room in the police
Yeah.
station. There's also one proposed in the fire station. So that would be when that parking lot would be the most full. Rather infrequently, but we plan for it.
Yeah, I guess, you know, do we really need all the parking? I mean, do we? I mean, I know that our bylaws call for, you know, certain number of spaces per, what we're seeing with everything we build, they're never used. Even Target on Black Friday has never been half full. I mean.
Oh, I agree with you, and I know there's been a recent big push with stormwater management and all to reduce unnecessary pavement and all.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to work with them more, you know, if we can eliminate some of that front lot and get more green space. We tried to look at the street view, so we have the green space existing in front of the police station, and then the green space that we're putting in front of the fire station.
Yeah.
Once you're out back, you're in the working man's land, and you basically can't see it as you drive by Central Street. Did you want to add something, Brian?
It's a load-in, but yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, we have to follow the rules, so I don't know what the thought is on that, but I guess we'll have to brainstorm some things potentially and get back to you on it.
And on the occasion that the parking lot is full, where are they gonna go if they don't have spaces?
They park on Central, which is what they do now. I mean, it works fine.
Yeah, I mean, half of me is hesitant to reduce that parking spot, that out front, because when you do have the fishing derby, when the fire department usually, you know, now that they're there, they may have open houses, much like the police station, fireworks, yeah. I mean, if you'd like, we could potentially look at, you know, kind of a dotted line, say, hey, it's up to the planning board, we could eliminate this outer row of parking and eliminate, I don't know how many spaces there are, but let's just say it's 10 spaces. But we certainly want to get some spaces up near the fire department's front entrance and keep the ones at the police station's front entrance.
Yeah. I mean, don't forget, even during the fishing derby, they still don't park in that police lot because they use it for a sidewalk chalk coloring contest.
If you stop parking cars out on the street, now the fire department may have a problem getting in and out.
Yeah. It's just, I guess personally, I have an issue of building parking lots to fit 2 nights a year where they might be all full. If I'm wrong and it's filled more than that, then great, we can talk about it. But, you know, if there's 2 nights a year or 2 days a year where we really need some parking up there, I just don't see the point of having parking spaces but the other 365 days, 363 days.
Well, you know, Rick, that opens up the whole idea of all the parking that's required for shopping centers.
That's what I just said, yeah. It's dumb.
You know, Target, for example, has probably tons more space than they need, but that's what's required. So,
If the board wants to give us direction to look at that front parking lot, the only, well, never mind, I'm not gonna say what I'm thinking. We can certainly look at reconfiguring that front parking lot with the police station and reduce the number of spaces. We do have to maintain, as you are aware, the police department also uses as access to their sally port out here. So, you know, there's a certain amount, you know, maybe we can shift things or something, gain a little space. I'll leave that to our illustrious engineers to draft up something where there's a double row of parking in the middle, maybe it becomes a single row.
Add to that is that, I don't really have a problem with the amount of parking, because these guys this is all heavy-duty machines, oil, gas, you know, it just needs to be captured in pavement, if anything else. But everything that's on the site is heavy-duty industrial. I just want to make sure that because I didn't see it, they're probably in the plans, but I just want to check that the road construction has a deep enough base that it doesn't crumble over time, especially when the water's so high up at the table.
Yeah, it's all heavy.
Yep, it's all heavy, yes.
All right, yeah, 'cause
Yeah,
I didn't want to see it crumbling at the street.
And just to go on that subject, you know, we've been asked over the years, why don't you use porous pavement? That doesn't really work well on these sites, no one's gonna clean it, they clog after 6 months. You know, I don't know what it is, but it's like a 5-inch system at least probably, right?
Well, usually you wouldn't use it for a DPW because there is, as you mentioned, you know, possibility of some spills, you know, they have oil and type of materials, you don't want it percolate. So this is a land use with high potential of pollutant, and that's why there has to be, you know, a vigorous treatment system, and it's much easier to clean up if it's paved and it goes into a system that's accessible for cleaning.
And actually, I'm kind of beyond thinking less technical than that. The roads have the base in there, typically you don't get a base, and the parking lot eventually settles. Streets and Route 18 are done totally different. They've got a heavy base, probably a foot, like my driveway's got that. They got a foot of base, and then, so it's the base I'm talking about, being able to be stable and not move.
Yeah, we
over
got
time.
16 inches of dense grade is what we're showing. 16 inches of dense grade.
Of grade, is that what you're calling that?
Yeah, so it's like crushed stone with bluestone kind of mixed in it, it's kind of like a.
Oh, okay, yeah, but,
It's the base you're talking
Yeah,
about.
the base,
yeah,
16
and that's,
inches.
okay, and that's exactly what I was looking for.
And I think that's the Mass DOT highway spec.
Because, you know, back there, the DPWs, they're gonna be the heaviest, you know, abusers of that, just because their machines tear up and they turn around and drop salt and everything else.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking as you're talking,
Yeah.
I would be hesitant to reconfigure the police station parking lot for 2 reasons. It is a public safety complex, and it's possible the police department could be having an event, a meeting, at the same time the fire department is. The other thing, frankly, is an added cost to the town. We would have to remove and relocate their existing lighting system, rip up pavement, put in new pavement, all that. I mean, there's a cost to that. I think in this case, it might be safer, better to err on the side of having that available parking for the two uses that are sharing the parking lot, and kind of leave the police station. One of the big things we've been trying to do is make sure the police station can continue to operate throughout phase 1 and phase 2 of construction. And I think the more we can stay away from their front area, the better, basically. So I understand your point, but I think in the long run, it might be a good investment to leave things as they are.
I have a couple of questions, but I'm going to defer to my colleague, Mr. Shepherd here.
I have a few more if I can continue going.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
That's
go
okay.
ahead, sorry.
So the idea of the pavement was brought up, that large area on the, is it the east, the west boundary? I mean, normally, if a commercial developer came to us and said, we're not sure what we're gonna do with this space, but we'd like to pave it over just in case, we might not be okay with that, especially since a lot of our preferences now lean towards permeable surfaces and less pavement and, you know, that end. I understand kind of the thought process, and especially where if you're talking about machinery, it's easier to get into the stormwater system. But I just want to make sure, like, all that space is, you know, mission critical, that Because not only do we have to pay to pave it, we have to pay to repave it and repave it down the road too.
It's important to note too, that the two buildings, the garage areas are the critical areas for both of these buildings, for the fire station and for the DPW. But they are used completely different ways. The fire station has the 5 bays. One of the bays is for the tower truck. It uses almost the entire bay. The other 4 bays will have 2 trucks or 2 vehicles, an ambulance, an engine, whatever combination there will be. That's for the fire department, and they can kind of adapt as the years go by. The DPW's garage space does not park like that. If you go down to the garage, the DPW garage now, the vehicles are parked about 12 to 18 inches away from each other. That's gonna continue. This is really a storage barn more than a nice, neat, orderly garage. So we're trying to maximize the size of this, because the more we can get protected by the building, the better it is for our most expensive machinery, and also the less we have to be outside. However, there's gonna be things that are going to be outside, like whether it be plows, or the riding lawnmower, whatever can't fit in here, we hope to have either under a canopy, if we can afford to, or maybe it's something we add later, but we plan for that. It may be some things that are stored out here. There's a gravel area for dead storage of things. I mean, remember, the DPW, at times during the year, they're storing pieces of the Island Grove dock here. And other times, that's in the water at Island Grove. It's not on site. We have everything from traffic cones to manhole covers to flashing signs. There's all sorts of things. Some items are going to be stored and are stored at the DPW's office at the sewer building on the corner of Progress and Summer Street. Some items, we've been talking about how the Rockland Street Fire Station may need to be reused and retained by this town as a storage facility, not only for the fireboat or the hazardous materials trailer, but also other dead storage of the DPW, and frankly, other departments that are in desperate storage need are gonna be off-site. So you're gonna see the things that are being stored on this property changing as the seasons change. So we're just building flexibility. We would like to put as much as possible in a container, in a building, or undercover, but we're just limited as to how much we can do. And it's gonna be up to each department head to make their best decision as to where to put things and what's most efficient.
But sorry, did you say it's been decided that the Rockland Street Station is remaining under town ownership?
The building committee is recommending it, kind of reaching out through the town manager who appoints us to say that the town needs to take a second look at that, at retaining it. Right now, it is used, in addition to a fire station, there is storage up in that building. So if it is to be relinquished, the town needs to solve that issue as a separate issue. And that means buying other real estate for storage.
Yeah, I mean, just, my concern is that we're looking at, I mean, what's the distance between the fire station and that building?
I can actually talk to that right now.
Yeah.
So the big area of asphalt, that's what.
Yeah, I mean, it's 40 yards of asphalt.
So the biggest thing about that, one of the requirements that we need is room to train with the apparatus. We don't have anywhere in town to do it. Right now, we use the North School, and that's not ideal. It's not ideal. We have nowhere to actually pull our trucks out and run scenarios like we would at the academy. At the academy, they have much larger spaces than this.
Mhm.
But we need to be able to train, and that's why we need space open like that, because there's no place else in town for us to do it.
All right. I mean, these are good explanations, so
And
I
the
appreciate
other thing
it.
that we also need space for is we do hose testing, which is stuff that takes up a lot of space. We have to lay out all of our hose, charge them, test them. That gives us ideal space to lay it all out and still be able to function and travel around. So it's big like that, so we can utilize part of it and still traffic doesn't get impeded. And the other thing I wanted to also mention, you talked about like making sure that all the departments know what they're doing and how they're moving about. If you look at the current spot, all 3 of our departments still use that. There's always a fire truck there every day,
Mhm.
because it's gotta be going to maintenance. We travel in and out of there for fuel every day. We respond to the police station, so I would recommend not to change that from parking space, because we actually pull the engine in there and the ambulance, and it works. But we already work around each other while we're on responses. We see the police get a call, they respond out. Right now, they respond down that middle road. But we would also respond up around, if you go up and around the mechanical building, and then down that main road where the police go. We respond up and down there all the time, too.
I'm sorry to add on, are you also, are we taking care of part of the, I'm calling, still call it the air base, are we And are you getting any calls to go there, or will you have any calls to go there? Because just wondering how far out you're gonna reach.
Very rarely right now.
Right now.
Right now, the biggest thing is during brush season, we're getting brush fires over in that area. They're very rare.
We access that off of Spruce Street.
Well,
So it's easy for us to-
I'm actually kind of thinking of sound, I mean, which I always kind of thought nice was that typically you don't hear the sirens going off when they leave the station. It's kind of nice, they kind of wait, but then the people down the road go, they get the sirens. And you're gonna be, I imagine there were a lot of coming out onto Washington Street and to go left and right to get onto Route 18. So I'm just wondering about what, 'cause I know when my office was across from the fire station, I heard it go off quite a bit. Of course, yes, I just kind of wondered, I didn't live in the house, but it wasn't so bad.
So are you asking how we're gonna navigate traveling?
Well, yeah, most of the I guess I'm just kind of talking out loud almost
Yeah.
myself, but that most of your traffic's gonna flow left and right on Central Street, and then break off into Route 53 or Route 18, or that's your kind of main connections. And you don't have to, and so we're not managing.
This is an ideal road, it's
Yeah.
the only road that lets us get from east to west
Ah.
without being impeded by the train. So many times, if we have a call that's on the eastern side of town, depending on where we're staged, where we're working, somebody always tries to go down this road, because you could be, so say there's a fire at Target, and the station 2 right now off of Rockland Street, their engine pulls out. And if they try to go down Center Ave and the train's coming, there's nothing they can do. There's nowhere for them to go. They can back up and try to go, they can't get the park because that's on the other side of the track. So we typically try to always send somebody down this road, so that way we can't be stopped by anything. So we utilize this quite a bit, and we go through those intersections every day.
Yeah. It was a question I actually had was, when the police pull out sometimes, their lights are going, but their siren's not. Until maybe they get up to the intersection, then they start to put it on. Is there any thought about how that's gonna work? Because I know that,
We don't typically use the siren unless we have to use the
We
siren.
try to be good neighbors.
Yeah.
People are a little noisier than others, but we try to
Yeah.
curtail it.
I mean, I imagine Coach Woodford's gonna be the most aggrieved out of all this, so.
But I mean, typically, if we're gonna pull out of there, we don't need to blare the siren to take a left or right out of the station.
Yeah.
We don't do it now.
I'm just making sure, I mean,
Yeah.
because when I was in Quincy Point, and I lived, 150 yards from the Quincy Point station, as soon as that door bay was open, that siren was on and they were going. But it was also down Route 3A, so I
We used to have
understand.
an officer that would turn on the automatic siren.
He's retired now.
He retired, but he heard a story that it has to be on from start to finish, the whole way. It didn't even matter if it was 3 in the morning. You don't hear us at 3 o'clock in the morning, so we're on the road for us to push out of the way. We wouldn't be doing that on this road anyways. Lights are more than enough.
Volunteer horn, that doesn't exist anymore, right?
No, we got rid of that probably about 15 to 18 years ago. You'll still have people actually calling for it back, and I have no idea why.
You do, we're not supposed to come to work, just so you know.
Yeah.
We'll just shove out the window for you.
Yeah.
All right. With your structure, is there gonna be a tower on the site like you have down at the other station on Route 18? You get a tall tower.
To hang the
Yeah,
hoses?
Yeah,
So you-
but it's gonna be based off of the top of the building.
It's
Radio
probably-
tower.
Oh, it's gonna be on.
You're talking about communication.
Communication tower, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's like a hose tower.
That's what I was thinking of.
No.
Oh, sorry, no.
I knew what you meant. Communication tower, we're gonna have, it's
Communication.
gonna be built off the roof if we have them, depending on the, we still have a meeting to.
Yeah, based on the communications that the police gets now, a radio tower it probably isn't gonna be needed. We'll be able to just put antennas on the roof of the station that will be able to take care of it.
I thought there was gonna be solar on top of the building.
It's prepared for solar,
Has to be designed for it?
yeah,
So,
But it's not gonna be put in right away.
we can't afford it yet.
so a lot of times, the energy code requires you to design roofs for solar load now, that's all day long. A lot of times, we don't do it on municipal projects, we do it through a PPA, and usually someone comes in afterwards as a power purchasing agreement. We find that works the best in town. Some towns are getting maxed out though, and I heard some of the utilities are being difficult, but we usually don't find it beneficial as part of the project, so.
Well, Abington was pretty slow to adopt solar. Harvey Hurwitz put it on Cape Cod lumber and stuff like that. But we don't have big solar fields in Abington like most communities, or a lot of communities.
So I guess this is a question for either of the engineers. So there's gonna be a lot of trucks going through there. Some of them are old, some of them are new. Fire trucks coming back from scenes. They're gonna be dirty. There's gonna be things leaking, maybe not from the fire trucks, but from other pieces. As they're rolling down these roads, the stuff gets washed off into the basins. How is that treated, since this is a kind of a heavier use?
So there is a pretreatment for the stormwater on existing DPW, well, on a site that's going to be still DPW. Right now it doesn't have it, but it's going to be deep sump catch basins that have a 4-foot sump. So a lot of the oils float, and there is a hood for outgoing pipe, so that kind of separates the sediment and some of the oils. And the town, as part of their maintenance, have to suck it up every 3 to 6 months. And then downstream of that, there is a hydrodynamic separator, which is a little bit, it's also like a manhole structure, but it has this hydrodynamic action that rolls around and also lets smaller sediments settle down and separate some of the oils. And it also has to be maintained and by DPW.
And that's sufficient for what they need?
The one thing that I would say is that they really should look at is that all roads lead to the culvert going to the pond. And in the event that you had some sort of catastrophic kind of release of something on the site, it would be nice to be able to shut that down until it can be recovered, so it doesn't make it to the pond itself.
Yeah.
So in that culvert, it seems to me that that's the one place that's taking stormwater. There are a couple other connections out the front of the fire station. My understanding is that those are for roof drains only, I think.
I think it's roof drains and just that apron that's in front of the fire station. There's really no other ways to collect it. It's just sheet close towards the road.
But I do think that a provision in there to protect the pond by having the ability to actually shut it down, to be able to make sure that anything that was a release could be pumped out, and before it becomes something that you're trying to pull out of the pond. It's just something to think about.
So, as you're saying, I was reading, really interesting that the groundwater's high through there. The way that they're building it, though, it's feasible, it's possible. It's not, it's not a matter of just, they can figure it out. It's something that's doable, right?
Well, like I say, what I didn't see was details as to how, when you take that other building out, the existing building, how do you take that building out and how do you prepare from the point that you get down to virgin ground and you're coming back up, how are you preparing that area in order to accept the fire station?
Yeah.
I think that's important, because that is an area that's really being disturbed. And I did want to point out, though, that on the left side, on the road going up to the cemetery, there is notation of petroleum odors in one of the manholes or one of the borings that was done on that side. I know that you said everything tested okay on the fuel station, but you might want to just look at what was the reason for that, and was that something that was looked at and resolved or not?
Is that like a mixing table, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, we do have a LSP on the site. We have done a phase 1 and phase 2 with testing, so
Who's the LSP?
us, Weston Sampson.
Oh, it is, okay.
So the stormwater coming from the front apron of the station as proposed would it go backwards still, or would it go towards the street?
No, it goes towards the street. It's really topographically not feasible to go backwards from that area.
Okay, and that's feasible, allowed?
I made note in my comments that there was a couple of connections that were going right to a catch basin, not to a manhole. That I saw that there was going right to a catch basin in there, so there was not that separation from, or that kind of treatment on those discharges. So that's something I made into it. They're gonna look at that one.
Did you note that there was the tanks out back, what do you call them, distribution tanks? I'm trying to remember the term used.
Stormwater chambers?
The chambers. With all that water gathering there and distributing, I was kind of wondering how it might affect the existing asphalt that's back there now. I didn't know if it would has it any danger of washing any subsoil out from underneath the asphalt?
Well, a lot of actually the chambers that we're proposing are detention chambers, what means it has concrete bottom. So the water is actually just sitting there. It's not percolating, through the bottom, and it's just letting out at a slower rate. So it's just storing it temporarily to let it out at a slower rate to make sure that the post-development peak rate of runoff does not increase above pre-development.
I guess it goes with the rate.
But one of them is a detention area, so it has about 9 to 12 inches of gravel, and then it has those chambers. I think in this particular case they're rectangular, but sometimes they're more of an arch shape.
Yes.
And that water, the subgrade is prepared based on the specifications, and then the gravel itself as well supports them. So generally, I mean, we use them on many projects, and there's usually not a problem as long as they've been constructed in
Okay.
accordance with specifications.
I mean, the whole sites are unfamiliar to me as far as how the water collects there and when they've had major storms, where does it go? So that's what I'm just learning. Thank you.
There's no real controls now.
No,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. It's like,
That
We had to do it.
Front DPW building is circa 1942.
If anything, we're trying to make them.
The
Oh,
only,
yeah, yeah.
Make
the
it
only
better,
problem
right?
on those chambers, as I pointed out in the comments, were that some of these are being set right on top of high groundwater. So the effect of any kind of higher groundwater surge, any kind of uplift, how does that affect not only the structure, but how does that affect, like you say, the pavement above it? You know, does that cause some sort of movement in there that you don't want to have happen? Because these are closed storage chambers. So it's just something that I commented to them that they need to just look at, that's all.
Is the topography, I'm trying to say that word, is it a relatively flat site, or does it slope toward Island Grove, or what's the story?
It's the lowest at the street, and then it's relatively flat right through the front section parking lot of the police station, and then it raises a little bit more in the back where the existing yard for DPW.
So it raises toward the back.
Yeah.
So it could conceivably slope down. I don't know why I had a hard time saying
It's kind of
topography.
flat, it's kind of flat in the front left. And there's indications in some of the test pits and borings that that was a filled-in swamp possibly on that side.
Yeah. Well, we're used to that with the Naval Air Station, because that was a flat site, stuff like that.
Are you proposing any tree removal? I think the stuff along the cemetery is all on their property, right? But is there anything in the back corners and that we're gonna have to?
There's some deciduous trees along our western boundary line that would have to come down. But as I mentioned, all the evergreens would be staying, because they're basically on, there's an existing, if you drive down that driveway, there's literally a line of evergreens that would stay, and then there's other assorted evergreens. But there are a number of deciduous trees on town property, either at or near the lot line, which would have to be removed.
Okay.
A number of them right next to where the fire department
All
station's
right.
going.
So we do have a bylaw that says we have to figure out what trees are coming down of a certain size and whether or not they can be replaced according to a kind of a certain calculation. Was that not online yet, that language?
Yes, it is.
It is? Okay. So if you're not going to be meeting the standard, we need to see that as another waiver. Because I think you have some plan for the eastern boundary along, I think, Mr. DeCarlo's. And they're a nice mixture, wonderful, but need to make sure that they're meeting our requirement. Is the site going to be secured any differently than it is now? Right now, it's kind of, you can kind of go back there any time at night. It's going to get more developed. There's going to be more things back there. Are we doing any other sort of security, separating out the police station areas from the DPW areas?
Lighting and cameras, which don't exist now.
Okay, there's no,
Limited,
trust the firemen, they're okay?
Fire department's there
We're there
24/7.
24/7.
So you're not gonna be breaking into the policeman's cars?
All the buildings will have access control too.
Yeah, over the years, there's been people, gates, or we're doing gates here, we're not doing gates. So we found that it seems like a lot of people like to do the video cameras. That way they have record too, if anything, for like 90 days, if someone's stealing salt, which has happened. And then, like you said, everyone's here at the site. I haven't done a municipal complex with a gate.
Yeah, we've done with the gates before too, and after a while, they kind of get sick of them and they just get left open because they're a pain to open and close all the time.
And Jeff, in case you're thinking of it, you can't go use the fuel pumps either as a resident. You have to have a key fob and be assigned to the system.
how much earth needs to be removed from the site?
I don't have it off the top of my head, but it's mostly from the back area where the salt shop's gonna be.
Okay. Do we need any sort of permitting regarding the amount of, that's going to be trucked out or in, according to our bylaws?
I don't think so.
There's about 250 cubic yards is the
Plan.
threshold.
I'd have to look at the bylaw. It hasn't affected anything recently, but I don't know. I'll look at that. I can look.
Okay. And then last question for now is, I know you're looking for a waiver for the width of parking spaces. My concern is this, and this isn't a criticism, but I know most of firefighters and DPW guys don't drive sedans. They're driving trucks. And a lot of the trucks now are 7 to 8 feet wide. So do we really want to go down to a 9-foot wide parking space when they're all showing up with 8-foot wide trucks?
Well, I think what we're talking about is the public parking, the parking out front, where we're not talking about the fire engines and the dump trucks and all.
I'm not talking about dump trucks either. I'm talking about the F-350s, which are 8 feet
Big
wide.
trucks.
F-250s, the big
Yes.
trucks.
Yeah, when I come across little spots like that, I just keep driving around trying to figure, what am I gonna fit in?
The new modern trucks are 7 to 8 feet wide. So do we want to go down to 9-foot parking spaces?
I know.
I don't even know what the police station currently uses. I mean, out in front of this building, they're 9 feet. Police station, I would guess are 9 feet, but I can check. Certainly behind the DPW, we could go to 10 feet, because those are the kind of guys, and a lot of firemen have trucks or SUVs.
Your concern is about personal vehicles?
Mhm.
Car width?
Width, the size.
And you see how we backed off by 18 big fire trucks into the station now?
Yep.
We can handle 9-foot spots.
All right. I don't want to hear the complaints. Like, why do these guys build them with 9-foot
You should see
spots?
the parking spots we have now at headquarters.
Okay.
That's true.
You're gonna waive all the insurance claim for the dings and the trucks, right?
Yeah.
I love the idea of cameras all over the place for security. I have a part-time weekend job at .32 Health in Canton, which is Tufts Medical and Harvard Pilgrim. And we have cameras everywhere, you know, in the building, outside the building, and we sit in a room and we can watch everything. We can zoom in on everything. I think it's wonderful.
That's disturbing and good at the same time.
But we still have to walk around and drive around, but we can see everything.
The police currently have that capability. If you step foot on there, you're on multiple cameras. The same will be true of the fire department and the DPW.
What's going to become of the salt storage shed, Sean? Easy for me to
There's
say.
2 wooden salt storage sheds currently, both, one in very bad shape. The roof failed, has been repaired. So that's just gonna be demolished. The other one, if someone wants to take it, move it somewhere else, great, otherwise it'll be demolished. So we're building one salt shed, which basically is approximately the size of the 2 that exist. And it'll be a fabric roof. It's kind of like you see with mass highways in different places.
But where is salt going to be stored until this new structure is built?
It'll stay in the existing sheds, because the existing DPW facility is gonna continue to run
Okay.
until the new salt shed and fuel station is installed. Remember, that fuel station was approved by a separate vote of the town, because whether we built this or not, the town wanted to remove the existing fuel station because of the underground tanks. So we incorporated it into its design, and then incorporated it into that phase 1.
Yeah, so what you're saying is in terms of ease of use, they will still have access to all their utilities while this is being constructed, and once this is completed, these can come down, so.
Do above-ground fuel tanks have to be sit in a waterproof crate? Yeah,
Yeah.
bathtub?
I don't believe so. They're double walled.
Double wall, they have to have 110%
Okay,
of
so
the
they couldn't
capacity
just...
in the interstitial.
Okay.
So when will this start?
When will you approve it? We are currently awaiting our updated cost estimate, which is we're gonna receive that in about next week or so. We have a meeting, a building committee meeting scheduled for October 4th to review the results of that. If we have a positive review, meaning if the cost estimate's coming in with our budget, then we would proceed immediately to go out to bid for phase 1. The driveway, the fuel station work, and the salt shed. And we would then, and correct me if I'm wrong, Taylor, we would then go to phase 2's bidding sometime right after the new year. The thought being, phase 1 would start at the beginning of the new year, maybe close to the end of this year, but start at the beginning of the new year, and would be done late spring, May, June. Once that's done, we would evacuate the DPW to the North School. That's gonna be a process, over several weeks. Anyone with a pickup truck would be more than welcome to help us. And that would be, the bidding for that, I'm sorry, for phase 2, demolition and construction, the bidding goes out early of next year.
Yeah, over the winter.
And then construction, demolition would start likely June-ish. Now, all of that could be pushed back if our cost estimate's high and we have to go back and make some further cuts, or if there's any other delays in the bid process, or, there's a lot of things with, as you guys know, with municipal construction, that can really screw you up and slow you down. But we got a pretty good team, and interest rates seem to be lining up for us, targeted wise, and we're going out at a good time of year for bidding, where contractors, we think, are kind of trying to line up next year's work. So we're, got our fingers crossed, pretty confident, but every month, we'll tell you a lot more about 3 or 4 weeks from now where we are.
I've been watching the progress, of course, at the big public safety complex in Brockton. And that's, they finally put up the white beam and stuff like that. But that's taken a long time. And the new police station in Quincy, too, that's taken a long time.
Brockton's had some major issues with the site.
Yeah, I remember that. It took them a hell of a long time to just do the site prep on
Yeah.
that site.
I went to Abington Middle High School, we built it on, ahead of schedule and under budget. And we're hoping to do something similar here. We have a very tight budget, and frankly, we're not shy to say we want to spend every dollar we can in these buildings on this site. But we need to get that professional cost estimate to know really where we are before we know we can move forward.
Shepherd, did you have any comments?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to repeat at the outset, just a commendation, Larry, for the work that you did putting this together. Very thorough, very detailed, and continuation of what we had seen in the past from Mr. Johnson, which is really important, obviously, for all of our site plans reviews to have this kind of information made available to us. I think one of the observations I had as I was reading through this is that there's a lot here. And with any site plan review, I think speaking personally, I'm always a little bit hesitant when I see this much feedback coming from our engineer. Some of the stuff in here is a little sloppy, which is another red flag, typically. So I would urge you to work very carefully with Larry to address all of the observations that he's made. The one that I think I'd like to come back to is this existing 36-inch drain pipe that connects to Island Grove that we've talked about several times. Utilized to handle the brunt of the flow, a discharge pipe into the pond is below the FEMA flood elevation, retarding the rate at which the pond will accept flow during and after significant storm events. So we may not have all the time in the world, but at a 50,000 point perspective, how do you fix that?
Well, it's an existing condition, that pipe is there, and currently the existing site is, 90% of the existing site drains to that pipe, right? So we're not really changing that condition. The site is still going to be draining to that point of discharge. That's just part of stormwater.
Yeah, but you are
design.
changing it because you're adding several more buildings and you're adding more discharge to the pipe.
Correct, and that's why we're adding the detention areas and the infiltration areas on site to hold the extra water from the extra impervious area in order to make sure that our peak runoff does not exceed existing. And I think if I'm not wrong, it's about, for most of the storms from 2, 10, 25, 50, and 100 years, we reduce that peak of runoff from the site by about 15%.
Go ahead, Larry.
When she says peak runoff, she says that they're not gonna go any faster down the highway, but they're gonna go longer. So there's more volume.
Yep.
The volume gets increased, but they're not gonna release it at a rate that's higher than what the peak is that gets released now. But it's gonna go for a longer period of time, because there's more volume to handle.
And is the rate that's released now acceptable under current standards?
Well, under current standards, the criteria is that you don't exceed that rate. so you don't let it go off any faster than it currently does. But it's the volume that she doesn't speak to, is that the volume is increased. And that's what you're speaking to, is that there is more coming off the site because there's more impervious area.
Sure.
So that volume is definitely still gonna be more going off-site. That's just the fact that when you increase impervious area, that's what's happening.
Quick side question, I'm sorry to jump in here. Have the 10, 15, 50, 100-year storm calculations changed at all because of what we're seeing regarding the current weather patterns and the more severe storms more frequently?
I would say it's de minimis. It's not really, not that much,
I think on a state level, there is right now a work to update the requirements, but it hasn't happened yet.
Okay, thank you.
So I'd ask you to pay particular attention to that comment and to that observation, because it's going into Island Grove. And to your point earlier, Rick, we don't want to be sitting here 6 or 8 years from now and all of a sudden have impact on the grove, on the pond, that we didn't, just because we didn't adequately consider what the ramifications of this might be. This strikes me as a pretty big deal.
Mr. Shepherd or Mr. Chairman, may I just have a
Please,
follow-up?
yes. Go
Are you saying that some of the...
Introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry, Henry DeCarlo,
Yes,
187 Second Street. You're saying some of the things on site feed into that pipe?
Correct,
Now?
correct.
I've been there 45 years, I did not know that, and I watched them build the police station. That pipe starts on my property. There's an open stream till then, 36-inch culvert. It's usually a small stream, although in a big storm it does, jump up. But when that went through the police station, it doesn't even go over to the fire station property. It comes out at Grove, and I was not aware of anything feeding into that. Maybe it's just that I wasn't aware of it. And in 45 years, I mean, it takes the water, and it goes up and down in a storm, but
And to add to that, can imagine what's flowing through that pipe, not being able to retain it on site now. As the existing conditions, you can imagine what's going into the grove right now.
They don't keep
But
it
it's
down
coming
track.
from up on Route 58.
Just in the DPW area, what's flowing through there.
Which we'll be cleaning with.
Right. the new
Yeah,
road.
and that's why I'm excited about this, is that it'll be better, but I just want to make sure that it's
Volume-wise.
sufficient.
Yep. You've never seen it overflow in your backyard?
No, I mean, it gets up to the top in a real heavy thunderstorm or something, it can, if it's, upstream, but it never, never overflows.
Yes, open small ditch in his backyard.
It's actually nice to hear from an abutter that a project won't affect his property, because the two things we always hear about when a project is proposed is it'll affect the drainage for the abutters and, of course, the traffic. So thank you, Henry.
Yeah, definitely that way, especially with the new basin along the road, it's definitely that way.
And then the
Sorry,
last,
I didn't interrupt.
no, quite all right. The last thing, Mr. Chairman, are the comments that Larry made pertaining to an operational plan and identifying how a complex with 3 major departments intends to function. And I think it makes perfect sense that those things are considered and documented in some fashion now, and I understand that you have given some thought to that. There has been discussion of that.
Yeah, there's been a lot of cooperation. I mean, obviously, there's certain dedicated areas that, this is obviously 100% fire department use, this is police use, this is DPW, and then there's uses where it's going to be flex use to
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what the point Larry is making, is that we try and get some of that, that it's not done by the seat of our pants,
Right.
but it's done kind of with some forethought. Making that part of the submission, I guess, makes sense. But we're probably not operational for a couple of years. So anything that you're coming up with now is essentially theoretical. We think this is how it's going to work. We think this is how we're going to cooperate.
Annual review.
Well, and exactly. That will become a living document.
Right.
Because as things open up and the flows begin, some opinions may change, and some things may have to change. So how does that get managed on an ongoing basis?
These guys are actually pretty good at that.
We've
too, so
got to
that's the
recognize
nice part
Scott
is
Lambisi, please.
When it comes to organization, the fire department, the DPW, and the police, they all work together very well. Ma'am?
Okay, so I
Yeah,
guess,
so yeah, you're right, though, it should be memorialized and reviewed as needed.
okay, and
But
then,
it's not something that I think has to come back to this board.
right, exactly. But it does not have to come back to this board, should not come back to this board. That's not really our scope or responsibility. But I think what I'm hearing then is that once that's complete, then it goes to the town manager. And as a document that kind of survives and is modified over time, that you're the keeper of that and essentially become you provide whatever oversight is necessary if it has to be changed.
I like to call that enforcer.
Just for the record, Scott, could you please identify yourself?
I'm Scott.
Because this is on TV, you
I
know.
understand.
And
we have a hand up over here.
Yeah,
Sir.
through you, Mr. Shepherd, I just wanted to say, I think that's a very good point. And the site layout that you see now it's probably the 30th or 33rd or 35th rendition of it
Yep.
that's hit. The reason for that is because we've had, police, fire, DPW all in the same room.
Yep.
And walked through this plan a number of times. And I can only imagine that in the future, that same thing, there might be different things that, different captains see or
Sure.
chiefs see. And I think that was one of the main reasons that the areas that we're saying, that we're proposing for pavement, that, don't necessarily need to be, or we're trying to kind of plan for a site that can really be as flexible as possible. So I think that is a very good point. I think circulation on it may change, 20 years, 50 years from now. But I think this is the best circulation-wise that we've been able to get everybody in a room to agree on
Yep.
with the managing members we have now.
Yep.
I can add, I think we did a similar thing with the middle high school. That's designed to have two-way traffic around the building, in the rotaries in the corners and the back corners. And we kind of left it for the school committee in the town to figure out what was going to be the best, safest way, the way the school ran. And currently, it's a one-way loop around the building. They could change that, it's designed to accept two-way traffic, but right now, one-way has been decided to be the best way. That's fine.
Let's keep it that way.
Yeah,
Let's keep it that way.
Yeah, I agree.
One of the evolving things we're talking about, EV charging.
Yep.
I mean, is that, you know what I'm saying, where does that stand now on this design, and where could that be in 10 years? I mean, could be totally different.
Sure.
The comments on traffic circulation were important to me because I used to work traffic engineering at VHB and Edwards and Kelsey in the town and Old Colony Planning Council. But I'm glad that that was brought up because you got these fire trucks and DPW trucks and all that stuff. And the police department, it's a separate, but it's still integrated into complex and stuff like that too. So that was good to hear. We've heard some really great stuff here tonight.
Just one more, if I might.
One more.
Thank you. So, what kind of timeframes are we looking at here? So you said you're 75% through.
There might be some additional things from tonight, so I guess we gotta go back.
Yeah. And so what are we looking for turnaround? I mean, to bring a plan back before we see you again? You want to allow for some time to work with Larry? Obviously, he's made himself, said he's available to provide additional feedback.
What's the first Monday in
The
October?
next meeting would be Monday, October 7th.
Is that Columbus Day potentially, you guys open?
No, it's the weekend, Columbus Day's the week after
Okay,
that.
all right, then,
We'll
maybe
be there.
there's a potential we could be there, so.
You think we
Larry,
can,
what kind of time frame do you need to turn a review around?
What's the deadline for submittal before the October 7th?
Well, I mean, I'd
Right.
like to have 2 weeks to be able to deal with whatever the changes are, to be able to look at it.
Right, which,
I guess, but
10/23.
that means I'm getting back a response that, you know, is not gonna have, they're not gonna have much time to look at whatever my response is. But, you know, I'll have one before the meeting.
Yeah.
So you're looking at 9/23.
Yeah, which isn't a lot of time, but, yeah.
right, not a lot of time.
Yeah, I guess the question is it possible for Western Sampson to put all that information together and submit by Monday, the 23rd, in order to give Mr. Silva time to review and issue an updated response that we could all review at the October 7th meeting. We're asking both companies to push, and I don't know, I don't want to make promises
Yeah,
we
no,
can't keep.
we'll have to talk with everyone, you know, some of the things I think that may be atypical is like the fill of the demolished building, like, you know, there's multiple structural engineers on this job and things like that that have to deal with, the fill required under their buildings. Is it finalized at the design?
Might have a short list of things that are still not resolved at that
I'm not
point, but
sure.
maybe we can get rid of most everything, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen their draft response, and I think they have a lot of information.
For that, yeah, there's a few other
The
things.
radii, the plans, some plans we had, and maybe coulda, shoulda, woulda, put it in the original
Yeah.
spec, I mean, the original submission. We'll have that for you, for all of you.
And just to know, you know, we're up to 350 drawings, so we, you know, left out some drawings that weren't,
Thank
you know.
Yeah. I don't have a horse, but
Yeah.
I mean, I would suggest, just in the interest of everyone, that if we, let's push the file
We're gonna
as
try,
much as
yeah.
we can by the 23rd of, Monday the 23rd, and keep this on the agenda for the 7th.
Yeah.
And if for some reason it just physically can't be done, we'll notify Liz. The next meeting would be,
Well, I was just gonna say, do you guys think you could have a separate meeting in October?
Well, I'm not going to be here on October 7th. I'm going to be in England.
I know, well, how about the October 21st? I'm not gonna
Well,
be here the 14th.
I will caution just to let you know that I am doing a vacation road trip to Utah down to Vegas from the 11th to the 19th.
So what's the Monday, what's the 20th?
So we have the
So I can
7th,
make it for this first one.
yeah, and then we have the 14th, but that is a holiday. And then the week after that is the 21st.
Why don't we leave it alone for now? If we have to, we can do so.
Could we stretch this to November? I'm just asking, could we stretch this to November?
Obviously, if we have to.
Try not to, but
Right.
We need to get phase one out.
You're gone the 11th or the 19th. We don't think the week of the 7th is gonna work.
why was that? Because you were away?
I'm going to be away the middle 2 weeks of October.
We don't need you, Bruce.
Yeah, no, but you guys, I mean, the 7th is our meeting, but I didn't think you guys thought you could get everything done by
I
then.
can check with other
Right.
Yeah, it's coming.
So I'm just trying to look for an alternate date that we can schedule
Yeah.
right now.
I mean, I think the outcome we're looking for is that by the time you come back, we're looking over at Larry and he's going, yeah, I'm pretty happy. And
Larry, you're away what dates?
He's out the 11th to the 19th.
And can I
If we-
ask that
if we
you're
bring-
not gonna be in a position to review plans during that time?
I'll be driving from Utah down to Las Vegas.
And I'll be in the
Yeah.
trunk.
I mean, is that something Rebecca would review, is this something that you're?
She has been part of the review, but I was the primary one,
Yeah.
you know. Their plate's pretty full.
So Monday the 21st would be, not work for you because you're away till the 19th. Is that?
Yeah, because then I wouldn't have had anything back to you at that point. It'd be better if we could get as much as we could for this next meeting date.
Yeah.
If they work closely and give me, even if you give it to me, I want to say somewhat piecemeal, if there are pieces that make sense, that we can put certain issues to bed totally, that would be nice, you know?
Yeah.
Even if we have a short list that's left, then at least maybe we can get to,
It's possible to have an approval subject to conditions.
right, to resolving whatever minor conditions are left, right?
then the next meeting, we could put anything to bed that is in phase one,
Yeah.
then it worries me a lot less, because we're getting phase one out. Anything else in phase two, we can follow up with change plans, things that, you know, I'm just thinking about bid timing and issuing addenda and making sure we're covered in the bid, so.
Because I think most of the things we talked about would not actually affect the design of phase one. There isn't many elevation issues over there or design issues over there.
Could you make sure that I see what phase one
Yeah.
define, what
Yeah,
the
well,
definition is?
Mhm.
So that I can make sure that I focus, especially on those, if we're gonna try to bring that one to a head.
Yeah, I think that's
You know what I mean?
easily
That might be-
doable, because it's a much, it has nothing to do with the fire station or
Alternative to bring
DPW
phase one in
buildings.
as a separate submission.
Well, the salt shed.
Just the salt shed
Phase one,
and just
they want
the,
it to
We could do a
speak.
partial approval of just phase one.
Yeah.
And leave the rest of it for another meeting date.
Yeah.
You could do that without me, I suppose. Sorry, I won't be.
You can go on vacation.
We were just determining how important it is for Bruce to be here.
I'm going to be in a farmhouse in,
So
outside
Jeff,
of
you're gonna be
Bangor,
in charge, so brush up.
So
Sorry, I don't speak English.
we're shooting for the 7th?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, and we'll
October
submit
7th?
whatever we have by Monday the 23rd.
I mean, because even if you go to the last Monday in October, which would be the 28th, Larry's out
If we
The
can
week
resolve
before.
phase one,
and get that
we
out the
should,
door.
we have more time.
And then you
Yeah.
guys can keep working towards what's, our next meeting is November 4th,
Right.
after that.
We will try to address as much of Larry's comments and the board's comments as we can in our next submission, but we'll try to focus on making sure that there are no issues with the eastern side of the plant. Phase one, Larry, is just basically this driveway, the driveway, I think you had it in one of your slides.
Well, it is kind of shaped, you see that LO, that limit of work here, and that is the phase one.
So it's, this, this right here, we're gonna build this.
Basically a road with the salt shed and the fuel island.
And is that taking out the other fuel area, that's still staying functional?
No, that's phase 2.
Right.
Yeah, okay,
No demolition until phase one construction is completed.
got it.
We need to be able to get fuel one day. and
Yeah,
the
so
whole
as soon
pump,
as we address
and the
those
next
issues,
meeting.
we can
Exactly.
not have that be in the way of you going forward with,
So even if the board can't take a vote to say phase one's okay, as long as we know that there's no changes.
how do they have to say that?
What's that?
How do they have to say that? Phase one's okay?
As long as we are all comfortable that we can go to bid, Bruce said that nothing's gonna change.
Right. I don't want you walking out of here going nuts and bolts.
It's a 5-hour time difference, chief, from where I'm going to be, so.
You just zoom in then.
Yeah, you can zoom in.
I've called
I'm
home.
sure your bride would be so happy.
I've called home from there. We've been over there 7 or 8 times, and I've called home.
There you
I
go.
could do that. I could
All
call
right.
into the board meeting.
All right?
So do you have a motion to make?
Yes. We have a motion to continue this to the next meeting? Someone like to make a motion to continue this to our October meeting?
October
Make
7th?
that motion.
October 7th meeting? Bob's made the motion.
Second.
Seconded? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
This has been awesome. This has been awesome. Thanks for coming.
And am I correct? You guys hired SEA, right, not just Larry?
No, Silver Engineering.
Yeah, Silver Engineering. So-
That's
No.
what,
SAA is all over.
No, we just,
Get me into any
we
kind of
just
digital.
hired Larry.
I've been doing it for 35 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
that was really good. Really well thought out letter.
What's that?
Really good, well thought out letter.
Yeah.
So I didn't give these to you because they were,
Okay.
they,
I'll see you.
it's town
I'll see
land, we
you.
don't know
What's
taxes.
going on,
Sewer department says we're fine.
Is it?
Thank you.
Prices on the building come in, okay?
No, they're over, but the contractor is,
Yeah.
he's gonna stand by their price.
It's okay to say that coming isn't key.
Details. Yeah, so I'll be in touch for site
No, I
services.
don't think so.
All right?
Current problem I have.
Do the minutes and stuff like that.
Oh, and I left you the
Oh,
hard
I'm
copies
sorry.
of that new
Yeah,
zoning.
Thank you.
Hopefully it'll be incorporated soon enough, but
Well, thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You too?
Well, I'll be
Oh,
back.
you'll be back, we'll see ya. All right,
Want to do the minutes?
let's do the minutes.
Let's do the minutes of July 10th, 2023. And Liz, you want to explain why we're getting 2023 minutes?
Because you pushed the time machine button? No, it's because I did not get them completed,
Motion-
and now
motion
that
to
I have
approve.
some help, I can do it. Well, Kevin can do it.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, June 3rd, 2023.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We did the Form A. Correspondence.
Zoning Board of Appeals agenda?
Yep. Okay. Correspondence is the ZBA agenda.
Oh, no, that's there is no real correspondence.
Okay. All right. Release of covenant through,
Oh, no, there is an agenda
okay.
for
all
them.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. ZBA agenda for September 12th.
Goslin's property on there.
Hmm.
Are they looking to build a duplex on Lot A and another duplex on Lot B?
So
Yes.
I think the way the plan looks is
Yes.
that there's like an attached duplex on the Bedford Street side, and then there's two separate duplexes on the West Chapel Street side, each with its own driveway.
Two separate on West Chapel?
Yes.
Okay.
But they don't have to come back before us for a site plan, or they do?
They do not, because it's
Because it's duplex.
two buildings on two lots.
Yeah, that's,
And I think if you hit 3, it triggers site plan review,
Yeah.
or 4, yeah.
that was, I know that's why they did it.
But curb openings and all that drainage.
That's what I'm afraid of, is the combined drainage between the two. But they have to have separate drainage for both lots, right?
That I don't know. And they're not gonna, I don't think they'll disturb an acre, so they won't have to come back for stormwater.
It's all up to the building.
Building inspector, right?
Which, I guess my own personal opinion is what they were trying to stuff in there, this is the better. Just my own personal.
Release of,
But yeah, it doesn't have to come back here.
That went away.
release of covenant.
Okay, so this is for 176 Whale Street. Dave went out and looked at the property, he came back to town hall, I drafted a quick letter for him and sent it out to Mr. Zaboski. Dave went back out to the site, what's today, Monday, last Thursday or Friday, and said that it's all set. The only thing missing is there needs to be a note on the plan that the drainage was installed per the approved plan. This specific language he wanted used, which I included in the letter to Mr. Zaboski. I emailed Mr. Zaboski and I have not heard anything back. So I don't know if you guys want to vote the release through August 31st contingent upon that note being on a plan, or you want to push it off till October. It's completely up to you.
So everything was okay except for that note?
Yep.
Because they were worried the drainage wasn't built according to the plan, and
Well, because nobody was out there.
nobody had the,
Right, nobody inspected it,
That says
which is a conversation I would like to have later on, but,
So he wants a finger to point to, so it kind of puts some skin in the game, I guess.
so David didn't witness the drainage being installed, so he, in order to protect the town, he wants to make sure that the as-built plan has a note that says their drainage was installed per the approved plan, because the approved
Who's
plan was
who's
approved
he?
drainage.
Who's he?
Mr. Zaboski?
Yes.
Yep.
No,
But
who
I-
is he?
Who is he?
Who is he? Yes.
176 Whale Street, he's a developer.
Small developer, yeah.
and I would assume it's gotta be stamped by a professional that says it was okay, not just by him.
That's what Dave's talking about, it's a certified.
Yes, yes, yeah, I mean, it can be stamped, but he wants that language on the plan for the town's protection.
All right, hold on, this is the dentist office, right?
No, it's a 10-unit lot,
Oh, it's the one next to
right
the.
next to Arnold Shoe Factory.
The shoe factory across from the park.
They didn't take down the trees at the end, they put in a little pad for a picnic table.
Wait a
The
minute.
big blue and white building.
So this isn't Bedford Street?
No, it's 176
Oh, I'm
Whale
looking
Street.
at the
Right
wrong
next to
one,
the
I'm
shoe
sorry.
shop.
I'm looking at the wrong one.
We're getting there.
I don't think it's an architecturally attractive building myself. It's there.
So, someone from the town has gone down and inspected it, and it's fine?
Dave went down and looked at took the as-built plan and looked at the site, and there were a multitude of issues. I emailed those issues to Mr. Zaboski. We got a revised plan and letter from Hardyman Group. Was a plan attached to it.
I don't think I got this.
They, everything had been addressed except for that note. And the note was, the design engineer shall provide a statement on the plan that the subsurface infiltration system was constructed as designed and approved.
All right, and we confirmed that everything has been updated?
Everything else was done except for the note on the plan.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I have no problem with the condition of that note being on the plan that we approve it.
Yeah.
All right, make that motion.
Someone want to second that?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm gonna abstain.
I mean,
Abstain.
in all reality, it's a private site. It's gonna be his problem if it don't work, not that it shouldn't work.
So Rick abstained.
Make the same note.
Let me just write this.
Rick, did you say you didn't have that?
Yeah.
Does anybody else not have that?
I didn't see
Oh,
it.
were those the extra ones that we had?
Did we not send those in the packet?
I don't know.
see
I
it.
don't think so.
You put the packet together?
Yeah.
I got 2 copies of the surety bond, but I didn't get that one.
Okay.
Okay. Didn't we bring the extras in here just in case?
No, I think they're in the office. It doesn't matter, they both are.
Oh, okay.
All right, 714 Bedford Street.
Release of surety.
Release of surety. We did have some problems there with the lighting. We were receiving complaints from the neighbors, and long story short, the lighting falls under, it's the sign lighting, so that falls into the zoning. Board of Appeals, they issued an approval letter for the sign, and they had installed the wrong lights. So they were supposed to have gooseneck lights at the top, and instead they had like kind of floodlights shining up from the bottom.
Yeah.
Which was lighting up the neighbor's house like the 4th of July. So the zoning department is now enforcing that. So there's really nothing for the planning board to hold up their surety. The as-built has been received and completed. That was a couple of times back and forth, and
Well, they have drainage issues too, which, something I've noted up there, I went up there after a rainstorm, and because they didn't put curbing along one part of the parking lot, all the water pours down the wood chips and pours into the guy's yard next door.
well, he did something too. He built something on his side, which has also affected the drainage. Because that was another part of the contention.
Well, yeah, but what happens is the water just spills over the parking lot, like in one little area, it's like a stream pouring into the back of his yard. It has nothing to do with what he's doing. It's just that, the other thing is that they put instead of putting a concrete pad down for the dumpsters, they used asphalt, and because they're sinking in the asphalt, the footprints are really dense in the ground, so they're
Oh.
But I noticed that everything looked pretty good to get that back lot, and that whole middle lot fills up with an inch of water. It doesn't even get to the drain out there, and then it does leak out, it does drain into his yard, or down the side of the walkway. Because I've been there, I was watching
Yeah.
it do it. But, so I don't know, the surety on that.
Has anyone from the town gone out to take a look, besides
Yep.
the lighting?
Yep,
The drainage?
Dave was out there.
And, okay, and he said
Yeah,
the
he went
drainage
out
is
several
fine?
times actually,
He said the
because
drainage is fine?
he said everything was fine.
Okay. One of my favorite topics, vote to allow the use of Cape Cod berm and.
Oh, can we take a motion, can I
Oh,
get a motion on the release of their surety?
Oh, we did. Anyway, get a motion on it, please.
I'll make that motion.
I thought he did, yeah.
No,
Okay.
I just did.
I thought the motion had been made and seconded.
Who seconded it?
No, it was-
Okay.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded on 714 Bedford Street. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, for some reason I.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
All right, before we get into
Cape Cod berm.
So, Azu dropped off Mylars and a plan. I'll let you look at the plan.
That's what's on the table out there.
Yes, and here's a hard copy of it, or a paper copy. I only have one.
Famous Rose Place.
So this, the board approved, and then it went to Whitman. Apparently, when he was before the Whitman Planning Board, they changed the sidewalks from granite curbing to Cape Cod berm. So he now has asked that you guys grant a waiver for that. I didn't get an explanation as to why it changed, just that it,
It's he always asks for forgiveness kind
See,
of crap.
That is part of the problem, being in two different towns.
let me see, I have an email from him.
Yeah, look at this good morning Liz thing.
Okay, so he had actually reached out at the end of May.
Can you move that? Can you go that way?
Oh, I have another smaller one if somebody,
Yeah, that would be.
yeah, did you guys get a copy of this? No?
Who
A long time ago.
Yeah,
was the one that reviewed this for us? Was it B&B?
P&P.
And have they seen the changes to Whitman's side?
So, we have a letter from JDE Civil, which is Jacobs Driscoll, it's who PMP is now, dated September 24th. And they determined that the revised documents have addressed all the comments for a few minor items that have been noted and highlighted above. And they evaluated the waiver. So when he reached out on May 30th, the attached plan set is a copy of the endorsed set by the Whitman Planning Board. We will deliver the original Mylar to you for your board's endorsement. We'd also like to take this opportunity to request the board waive the requirement for roadway granite curbing and allow the installation of bituminous concrete Cape Cod berm in lieu of the granite curbing. The public good that will be realized from the Cape Cod berm is in the prevention of potential fire apparatus and equipment damage during emergency operations and response, as well as ease of snow plowing. Herein below is an email correspondence from the fire department in support of this requested waiver. I would like to thank your office for helping us, blah, blah, blah.
Aren't all the roadways in Abington?
That was my recollection.
No, there was something in Whitman.
I thought the backyards were in Whitman.
Yeah, well,
That's what I
actually,
recall.
no, all the roads are in Abington. Look at the line right here.
Yeah, the backyards were in Whitman.
Back
The
there.
roads were in Abington.
So why do they get to say what's built in Abington?
Exactly.
We could take this rivalry to the football field. Where the game gets to decide.
Set something up for Thanksgiving.
The drainage in Whitman?
I think part of the drainage was in Whitman.
All right, yeah. It's just been going on for so long that,
I guess the assumption is the fire in Whitman would respond to this thing.
Well, this was Abby, this was
Line right there.
specifically to
This
us.
is the street right there.
Um,
The streets aren't in Whitman.
And he said that the fire department is waiving the requirements for any street box fire alarm systems for the development, and the fire department is in favor of Cape Cod berms for the side of the road due to the increased risk of damage to our apparatus in the event we need to get multiple vehicles into the development. So that was a December 8th email from Chris Cotty.
So here's the problem, is that fire and DPW now want us to use Cape Cod berms, but the town's laws clearly say granite. So this needs to be addressed at a level higher than us.
I'm not going to
Really, 'cause
disagree
they-
with you.
You know, I mean, the whole idea of the granite curbs is so to keep and maintain the roads from falling apart. I
Yes.
mean, if you don't have those.
if they're installed properly.
If they're installed properly, yeah. But I'm not, honestly, I'm not in favor of, because if they wanted that change, I would have liked to see the change before. you
Okay.
say
I mean,
that.
we can put them on October, and I can ask them to come in.
I'm good, my opinion won't change.
Yeah. I'm not
Yeah,
in favor.
nope.
Mine won't either.
And then I guess some of the other things that, I'm just trying to, here's our decision letter that I actually didn't notice till today when I rolled out the plans to, before you endorsed them, I was trying to anticipate questions. And so there was the waiver and the stormwater management certificate, there was a bunch of stuff like that. But then there was conditions to comply with the tree waiver, the trees, and those aren't on the plans.
Trees aren't on the plan?
There were a couple of things.
Yeah, because I think you brought that up. Because
Since we passed it, we haven't had one project come in here that's actually followed that rule.
No, but I thought he left it going, we had to do that.
That is not for lack of me telling them.
Yeah, so, keep bringing it up,
Yeah.
especially to the attorneys who should know better, because they're in here every month.
Yeah, so there were a couple of things on the last page of the decision letter that I couldn't find a record of. Yeah, so I can actually email him that with that information as well. If that's what you want to do, it's up to you guys.
So need a motion to reinforce our original decision?
No, actually, if you could give me a motion to continue this till October,
Oh.
and then he can either revise the plans or do whatever he's gonna do.
Someone want to make that motion?
So moved.
Second?
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Done.
Okay.
I was going to say, when we were talking about the new public safety complex, nothing was mentioned about pit curb, because presumably there won't be any curbing in it.
All right, did you guys read the covenant, and did you have any issues with it, or is that okay to be endorsed? I mean, we don't have to do that tonight. I just want to make sure it's all right moving forward.
Covenant?
The covenant for Rose Place?
Oh, for Rose.
I'd like to hold on to it until you deal with this other issue.
Well, just,
Oh,
It's standard, right?
it's standard.
okay.
We've double-checked the language that's in our subdivision book. I just don't want to,
But it's one we've been.
I don't want to email him back and say A, B, C, D, E, F, G are wrong with the plans, and then have him come back and then go, oh, by the way, A, the covenant is wrong. Trying to get all of that information to him at one. Okay, and then,
So we've got a covenant that's running with the land. It has to be filed, right?
no, it's a covenant, we're going to covenant the lots so he can start the road. And we hold those as surety. And then but he does have to give us, actually, I'm not sure he has to give it to us, but on their deeds has to be all about the detention basins and how they're responsible.
Yeah.
And there was a whole list of that they have to do in the decision letter.
Yeah, and I think it is important that we see evidence that that is happening.
Okay. They haven't done any of that yet because obviously they're trying to get this piece of it done, but I
Yep.
will,
Trust but verify.
yes, I will stress the import of that. And then Board of Selectmen policy on naming streets. We haven't met since this was adopted, so I wanted to make sure you guys had a copy of it.
Where, don't we have a bylaw that talks about this, right? Thought we got a zoning bylaw that talks about road names.
I don't think there's a zoning bylaw, it was a policy that the board had to name them after killed in action
Yeah.
service people. And then we had that talk about the Purple Heart recipients
Yeah.
and naming streets after them, and then this happened.
Yeah.
So this, the only roads under this are the ones that are going to be publicly accepted. Because that has to go before the Board of Selectmen. If a roadway's not going to go through the public acceptance process, then it doesn't have to be named after somebody killed in action.
We could suggest it, though.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I wouldn't want to veer from that.
I mean, I don't understand what this does differently than we already have on the books, but.
So they're going to give us the name, or Adam will give us the name based on a criteria that he's developing. That was not the policy before. The policy before was the developer could pick the name,
Oh, off the list provided by the Veteran Services Agent.
but by the list I had.
which was
Yeah.
provided by the Veterans Service.
I don't know who provided it, that's always the question, it just existed when I started, so I cannot attest to where it came from, but the list existed and somebody could pick a name, and now Adam will have to provide a name.
It'd be nice just to get rid of the word estate in front of crappy old houses that, you know.
So I just wanted you to know that this existed, and
Yeah, I mean, just, I have other issues with the whole thing, like, under this policy, if Clara Barton was from Abington, we couldn't name a street after her. We can't name a street after Martha Ware. I mean, that's kind of, I'm having some issues with that stuff, but as far as what it is, it's fine.
well, if the road's not gonna be accepted, you can name it after Martha Ware. I know, or Kate Kelly.
Well, you have an interest in that.
Do I? Or Mary Lou Morgan, female building inspector. So anyway, the last thing I have for you guys tonight is something that was alluded to earlier about the doing inspections on stormwater systems. And I know we used to send somebody out a long time ago to inspect drainage systems on a subdivision, and then we stopped that.
PMP used to put it in there.
Yes, yes, and we stopped doing it. I just received my first MS4 stormwater permit report from the DPW, and there's a section here about construction and post-construction stormwater runoff control. So it was like, how many site plans did you look at? How many as-bills did you receive? And then the two big questions were number of construction inspections completed, which is 0.
Number,
Of constructions completed. Construction inspections completed, which was 0. And number of enforcement actions taken, which is 0 because we didn't send anybody out to do construction inspections. So I think we need to add that back in to all of the decision letters, the subdivisions, the site plans, to everything, because now they're asking, and our building inspector is our stormwater management person. So I'm trying to, I guess I'm trying to do what we need to do to stay compliant with the state. I just don't, I want.
That's the only way to get someone to take responsibility for the project.
Right, and I know that right now we're counting on an engineer stamping it and saying that it's okay.
Yeah, but we don't see it built.
But the problem is, I guess if we don't verify, then I don't know how this gets filled out appropriately, right? So
So what are you looking for us then?
I'm just looking for your support on that. If I put all of that, if I put that back and make it a standard condition, you guys voted the standard conditions on
who does
the,
the verification?
we would have our engineer do it.
It would be our engineer?
Yep.
Okay.
So
Yep.
once upon a time, we used to get reports from PMP.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I felt at times he was padding
Cape
the
Right.
outcome of, but
Cape Cod lumber was kind of the last one I remember.
And I don't even know how much kind of that got done. Some of it did. And so I guess that's the other thing. How much do you want them to inspect?
fortunately, if an engineer stamps something,
Right.
you need another engineer, technically, they have a moral obligation to.
They do, but I think what the state is requiring us to do is not trust but verify, or trust and verify.
I get it.
It's good, like, he's right, but you're right, you gotta do that. Essentially, when I walk into a building, I end up taking control of it. If anything, if I notice something and someone got hurt by it, I'd be pulled into a lawsuit with it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And so that's one aspect, we're keeping the town safe. The second aspect is we're keeping the town compliant with our
Yeah.
permit.
So do you put it as part of the MS4 permitting, that we need to verify?
Well, I think we should just include it in all
But that doesn't
the site plan
necessarily-
letters?
Doesn't necessarily trigger the stormwater part of that.
I would say even if it doesn't trigger the stormwater, I think drainage is so important now. that it should probably all be looked at.
I
I'm a little hesitant of
Adding on too much?
adding cost, especially on a private site.
Yeah, just looking out for them, because once they build it, the builder's gone.
That's it.
Yeah,
Right,
that's it.
well,
Right, so I mean,
So-
if you want to look at it from that point of view, it gets built, the developer's gone,
Yeah.
and 2 years down the road, we have a 100-year storm event and the drainage doesn't work. And now it's not only blowing up that subdivision, but it's
Right.
rolling into
right,
another
for a
one.
subdivision is one thing, but for
For a site,
a site plan review is something else, because that's gonna stay private.
until it runs out in the road.
Right, but then
Right.
there's
Or
enforceable
butters
actions to make them fix their private drainage system, because it's coming out into the street.
So you're
Right.
thinking like residents private, not
Yeah.
like,
Like the one we just released is, how many units was that building? 8 units, it's gonna stay private, it's not really subdivision. If its drainage fails,
well, that's what, trying to head off, because if I'm in here, Wayne used to say, the only thing you can do is sue them.
Right.
no.
That's why I don't want to see it happen. I don't know. I guess it depends on the project, if it's large enough, but I just think of my neighbor that he got punched in the face by his neighbor by confronting him because of the drainage that ran off of his property. It would be nice if the neighbors didn't have to get into a fist fight.
Even if it's inspected, doesn't mean it's not gonna fail
Well, other than.
at some point.
Yeah, I
If
mean.
it's not maintained, if it's not,
If it's not, yeah, that's true.
Mhm.
But in the beginning, if you know that, well, from the beginning, it will, should work. After that, of course, you don't build up, the soil grows, everything gets deeper and deeper. I don't know, I'd encourage it, I think we should, that's my feeling. But we can look at it as a base by base.
so I guess,
Like the fee we determine.
I guess I would encourage it. It could be up to the builder to explain to us why it's not necessary on a smaller project, I don't know.
That's fine. If you get someone like, LaPointe and he knows his
If it's
property.
a smaller project and it's a private.
Well, I think if it triggers our stormwater bylaw.
Right.
And if the stormwater
Yeah.
is done as part of the site plan.
Yes.
Then
Then
it
it needs to be
absolutely should be a
inspected.
requirement.
Right, but just for a willy-nilly one that doesn't,
No. I'm thinking the same thing. If you got a retention or detention basin, like the dentist office, that needs to be, it's private, but it should be reviewed to make sure that it was done correctly. Or at the end, the civil engineer says, I reviewed this and as, because you don't need to have a peer review on that. You do need to have the engineer committed to, he's the one that should be out there.
you should be responsible.
Responsible for it. So
That's
we
right.
can- So, but if we got a signature off at the end, it brings a whole different perspective. They don't just go, oh, yeah. You know how many times I'm supposed to be doing things that the state wants, and no one ever tells me. I didn't even know sometimes when the construction starts. I was like, what the hell? But, yeah, I mean, it really kind of depends on the owners. If they don't call you.
All right.
Well, obviously, it needs to be done on the bigger projects.
Clear as mud.
No.
So, motion to include stormwater inspections.
Yes.
So moved.
In decision letters.
Second. Motion's been made to include stormwater inspections and decision letters.
For projects that hit the stormwater threshold.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use meet instead of hit.
What's that?
I'm gonna use meet instead of hit.
There you go.
Okay, if you're done,
Thank you.
Motion, okay, second, we vote?
Yep. All right,
That's it?
I believe so.
All right.
one more very quick thing. Not for tonight, but we had housing legislation that was passed in August. I think I'd sent you an email, Bruce. The bond authorization for expanding MWRA down to the base was not part of the legislation. So I know that we heard from Southfield the representatives said they were working with the MWRA. I think they continue to work with the MWRA to extend water and sewerage down. But the bond authorization didn't go through. So I don't know where that leaves them. They can have all the agreements in the world, but if they can't float a bond, they're not going anywhere.
So then very briefly, I'm not going to keep anybody, but I'm not sure if you guys know, I think Bruce knows, that I'm sitting on a steering committee. OCPC got a regional grant for water, so we're studying
Sorry.
water
I
uses.
was sitting outside for 45 minutes.
And
You should tell him to come into the meeting. His son.
so we're at the point where we're looking at capacities, PFAS treatment, in 2050.
That's committee?
Yes, I am. And I can tell you, my brain hurts every day I leave.
Another OCPC.
You should have volunteered.
Right? I started before he did, otherwise. If I wasn't already in, it would have been Kevin's job. Kevin's actually doing some other brain cramping work.
Oh, my gosh.
So the second thing that was in that August legislation was accessory dwelling units by right.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
By
so,
So it's not that, so does that imply that we have a zoning change to make?
here's the problem. Guidance is being directed and provided by EOLHCC, which is the former DHCD, so alphabet soup. EOLHC is currently processing MBTA Communities application, and I haven't heard anything back from them on that. I don't know where the staff for all of this is gonna be, honest to God. So I don't know when we're gonna get that guidance, because we traditionally start writing zoning in December. And this bylaw is effective February 1st. And if the guidance gets published January 30th, that doesn't help us that much in crafting zoning. I'm sure Copman and Page will be on it. That's actually where I got that notification. They sent a letter saying, these are all the changes that got adopted.
So that's
If we
something the
do
state's
nothing-
trying to jam down our throat?
They already
Yes.
have.
Oh, they have. It's effective
They've
February 1st.
already jammed it.
So we could change our parking regulations for that type of a property to make sure there's enough actual paved parking, instead of people parking up on the lawns.
They're
and
not
you see
gonna
it.
set a criteria if it's a law.
Well, this is the problem. We're waiting for criteria from
Okay.
the state, and I don't have any of that right now, and I don't know when it's coming.
Okay. So, and those couple of things, the MWRA bond authorization, this accessory dwelling units by right,
Bless you.
Bless you.
I got that just by reading a news article,
Right.
right? What else was in that legislation
Right.
that may represent a concern for us, or may mean that we have to start thinking about zoning changes? So where do we get that guidance? If there's a...
So Copman and Page usually sends
All
us something out when legislation happens.
Okay.
They're actually really good about that, so I did get a memorandum from them almost immediately. If I don't get something, Scott sends something along, if he gets something. So the information flow is actually decent, we did learn about it. There's some stuff in there already that you could rent both units, so right now the property owner doesn't even have to live there.
Yep.
So they could rent the house and the ADU. And like I said, no guidance from EOLHCC yet. I'm waiting with the bated breath for that.
So that's a town's worst nightmare, is a delinquent, a vacant landlord doesn't have anything to do with his property. You know, he lives in California someplace.
Yeah, so anyway, that's the good news. And so that will all become effective February 1st or February 2nd, regardless of what's on our books. So February 2nd or 3rd, the day after our in-law bylaw is defunct. It's no longer applicable.
That leaves us in a bit of a quandary, doesn't it?
It certainly does, because there's no way we can do anything right now. I mean, we can't call a special town meeting to address this.
Right.
And although I think we're having one, but we have no guidance to draft any zoning.
So obviously there's gotta be some
Yeah,
good way to.
They threw out a blanket and they gotta develop it now.
Right, right. Which is actually what happened with MBTA communities. The legislature kind of threw out some rules, and then EOLHCC, or DHCCD at the time, had to develop the guidance and the rules that went with it. Which was why a year into it, Mike dropped all the stuff that you could use a commercial use in it and didn't have to be all residential. So that's why that changed midstream. We didn't adopt that change. We didn't go to that change at all because we already had zoning in place for that. But yeah, so
So we're waiting for guidance.
we're waiting for guidance.
Okay.
And we're waiting for guidance for that and a decision on the MBTA communities. Everybody has approved it except for them right now.
Okay.
So
Thank
that's
you.
where we are.
Message.
So yeah. Oh,
Adjourn.
Oh, we need to sign documents, by the way, guys.
oh, the plan, no, we're not. That's Rose Place.
Okay, so we don't.
Oh, yes, we do, the Form A plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn to sign plans.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everyone. Thanks for watching.